I want to take a moment to thank Falken Tires for sponsoring the entire season 2 of the Sil 80 Mania podcast. Did you know that Falken Tires was the first tire company to support grassroots drifting in the USA? That's before Formula D and before D1 came here to the US. They brought famed Japanese drivers to the US shores like Koguchi and Seigo Yamamoto. They partnered with Formula D for 19 years, and they sponsored many inspirational US drifting pioneers such as Calvin Vaughn, Chris Forsberg, and Dai Yoshihara.
And they were big supporters of Drifting Pretty. Honey Buns, what tire do you recommend for drifting?
That's easy. When people ask me for advice on car setup, I always tell them, if you want good grip, you use the Falken Azenist RT615. And hey babe, what do you use on our daily driver?
We use the Azenist FK460s, which is a great all-season tire that keeps our family safe in the dry and wet. And I just want to give Falken flowers for their part in making drifting what it is today and for sponsoring the entire season of our podcast. Visit Falken Tire's website at falkentire.com and check out their IG at Falken Tire.
You're listening to the Sil 80 Mania podcast season 2, brought to you by Falken Tires. Here we document the history of drifting by interviewing the OGs and trendsetters of drifting culture. In the studio today, we have 3-time champion and third most winning driver in Formula D, Chris Forsberg.
Yes, sir. How are you, man?
I'm good, dude.
Yeah.
It's been a really long time.
It's been a minute or two.
Yeah, multiple minutes, dude. It's such a pleasure to have you. We have so much to catch up on.
There's a lot. It's funny because like I've been having this like reoccurring thought of, I mean, long story short, like with drifting, like I continue to have small conversations with fans, right? And I'm continuing to see like the consistency of the current fan. A majority of the current fans don't know much about drifting pre like 2012, right?
Yeah.
That's when like social media started, right?
Yeah.
That's when like Instagram and Facebook and YouTube was all starting to take off. And so there's like this whole other generation of drifting, right? That we came from that most of these guys don't know about.
Yeah.
Like it was funny, like real quick example. Yesterday, right? I'm going to, like, we went to Monster Jam, right? My buddy Chris from K&N, he hits me up. He's like, we got 2 tickets for Monster Jam. I'm like, great. I'm like, let's grab some dinner on the way. And so we go up and we hit the Spectrum to go grab some food on the way up. And the valet guy there knows me, right?
Okay.
And so I pull up and it like the lot's full, and I'm coming around the corner and it's like they got the valet thing coned off. And I'm like, oh crap, I was like, it's Saturday, it's busy. And I see him, right? And he kind of like recognizes the car. I roll the window down. I'm like, hey man, you got room for one more? He's like, oh yeah, sure. Runs over, pulls the cone, lets me in. And we're just having a quick conversation because I just came back from Hammers. I went out and checked out Hammers on Friday. I was like, yeah, it's cool. Check it out. Like he's like, yeah, one of my friend's dad was racing there. I was like, yeah, like my buddy Vaughn won the 4600 class. He's like, oh, just say like my buddy Vaughn, like all casual. And I'm like, and it like hit me right there. I'm like, this kid has no idea of like me and Vaughn's like history, right?
Yeah.
We like grew up in drifting together. Like we threw the first event that Vaughn ever went to.
Yeah.
And we did drift alliance and we traveled the country together in a van, like things like that. And like it probably doesn't even register to this kid like the friendship that happened before we became rivals in, I mean not to say rivals, but competitors in FD,
right?
Because that's probably all he's ever seen. And so once again, that's a perfect example coming into this podcast today of how much there is, unknown to the current
There's
fan.
so much to cover because social media started so late into drifting, and so if you try and like look at someone's IG feed or whatever, it doesn't go back far enough.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like I remember specifically doing my first Instagram post, and it was while I was packing to move to Maryland, right?
Okay.
And so there was, that was like 2012, and so there was just, like I said, years and years, like 15 plus years of drifting in the States alone, let alone Japan, that most people don't even know about.
Yeah. So that's why we do this podcast. So we can capture that and people can go back and listen to it later, watch it later.
Maybe
whatever.
we need to call it like the Silady Mania Archives.
Yeah.
Like, we got the microfiche going on right
Yeah, I
now.
know,
Like,
microfiche.
and we go back
Yeah.
to 2003.
Yeah. Yeah,
Or two.
I have like younger people on my IG feed like making fun of our old videos and photos, like, oh, did you colorize those? Were they back in black and white originally? Yeah.
Yeah, you would think. But yeah, and like I was talking, like, so I gave my brother a call. We try and catch up every Sunday. And so I was talking to my brother on the way up here. He's like, oh, what are you doing today? I was like, I'm actually going to see Benson and Nadine for their podcast. He's like Benson?
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, you know.
There's only
He even
one.
said, yeah, he's like, still lady guy? I'm like,
Yeah,
that's the one.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's funny. Your brother Topics.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yep. There you go. So you remember.
I remember.
Wow. Cobwebs.
Yeah,
Yeah,
cobwebs.
I know. We're dusting them off.
Yeah. So let's really dust them off and
Oh,
go
yeah.
back to Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Doylestown,
Mm-hmm.
Pennsylvania. That's where you're from.
So yeah, like I was like born and raised in like Westchester. It's like kind of the west side of Philadelphia, and then moved to Doylestown when I was like 13-ish, you know, so like 12 or 13. And so that's like why I say like, oh, I'm like from there, right? Because like that was like my more developing years.
Yeah.
And then like how I got into cars and everything else. So I was like, you know, just like skating, BMX, things like that. And then it was around 14, 15 when like my brother and a couple of his friends, they started to get their license, they started to get into cars, and we're kind of like starting to read the magazines.
Yeah.
And like for me, it started off in car audio,
Okay.
right? Because I was like into trucks, I was into car audio, like, you know, slam dualies and things like that. And so my brother's first car was a 87 Blazer, which I acquired from him after he got his Eclipse. And so his first car was a Eclipse GSX, and so that's when we started to learn more about turbos and things like that.
Nice.
And so when I
Babe, your
Babe,
introduction.
Eclipse GSX.
Yeah,
all-wheel
We have
drive.
like an inside joke about that because I kind
I
of
hate that
secretly
car.
wanted it. And like, so every time we see, well, we don't see them anymore because they're like all dead, but
Oh, yeah.
like, I love that car.
When that car came out, it was like the first turbo import that we got, right?
Yeah, one of the
one of the few. And so all the Eclipse owners were like, they thought they got the baddest car on the street. And I'm like,
Well, that car is like great for going straight. It's great.
yeah.
Oh yeah,
It had a good
that's
engine.
all it's good for.
It
Yeah,
had a
Thing
good
is
engine.
fast.
but it was quick. Yeah,
Yeah.
You do a couple mods and you're pulling. So
Yeah.
But so yeah, like
and now they're all in the junkyard. So.
oh yeah.
Sorry.
So like that's like how we got our start with you know, working on cars. And
Right.
so when
I
wasn't
was going to say, was that also your start into imports?
Yeah, essentially. So when I wasn't sticking speakers in my Blazer, my buddies had Hondas. My brother had the Eclipse, and then this was literally my brother was working with Tony Angelo at a restaurant down in New Hope. So
Nice.
essentially, like, you know, 20 minutes away. So he met Tony through the restaurant they were working in, and so he's like, you know, I'm about to buy a car, and he's like, you should get, you know, my buddy's telling me you should get an RX-7. You know,
Nice.
they're cool. Because I'm like looking at like 3,000 GTs.
Around what year was this? Oh my god!
Oh yeah, no, yeah, because my brother had the Eclipse, and so I'm like, what's better than an Eclipse?
Yeah.
Clearly a 3000 GT. And so yeah, and I remember looking at, and like, man, I kind of wish I got it at the time, but I remember the dealership down in Doylestown, they had a 97 S14 red.
Okay.
It was like beautiful, right?
Yeah.
But it was like 16 grand, you know, which that's like what they go for now, actually.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It kind of came back.
It's back.
But
Wait, what year was this? Like
this was like 98,
97?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because that was, yeah. What was that? No, 99. 98, 99. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, very small details. So I was like looking at that. I'm like reading about F-Max turbo kits and things like that. And I'm like, oh, you can make these things cool. And so this was still like kind of before I really found out about drifting, right? So because I'm like kind of all over the place with what kind of car I wanted to get. My friends had Hondas. I wasn't too into the front wheel drive. I did like the rear wheel and or all wheel drive options. I learned how to drive stick though in my buddy's CRX, Adam Barker, if you remember him.
Nice.
So I drove his CRX around my parents' backyard when I was like 15, you know, learned how to do manual.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I knew I wanted to get some sort of import car, which that's funny because that pulls me to my old handle was import turbo, remember?
Right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah,
Because
on
I
AOL.
Yep, because I didn't know what kind of car I wanted, but I knew it was going to be import turbo with one T.
Yeah. Yeah.
Clever, right?
Nice.
Yeah, that was my old Instagram, jeez.
AOL.
AOL
Or AIM.
handle. Yep.
Oh.
Yeah, so... and so Tony told my brother to, tell me to get an RX-7. They were cool and whatever. I start looking into them like, yeah, these things are cool. They have got that slick styling.
Yeah.
So found one. It was in Virginia. It was like $5,500. Drove down there to pick it up. It was super clean. It had like 50,000 miles. Had a Gretty Power Extreme exhaust on it, and
Nice.
I think that was it. I think that was like the only mod. So
What
bought that.
color? That was white, right?
Black.
Black. Okay,
His
it was
white.
black.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I swapped it. Okay.
Yeah, so picked that car up, drove it home, and just instantly started to modify it, right? Started to try and not just buy parts for it, but I was like making some things like, fast forward like through the next couple of years, I was like building my own turbo manifolds for it. I like, converted to being like a semi-peripheral port at one point. And that was like before it was like a thing, right? Like I didn't know, never heard of peripheral porting, or
Okay.
I'm sorry, never heard of semi-peripheral porting. I just knew about peripheral porting. I'm like, well, what if you just like did like 1-inch peripherals like
Yeah.
through the water jacket
Yeah.
and like added elbows into the lower intake manifold and just ran it 6-port like that. And like I had some local welder guy, like
Yeah.
I made it, and he welded the manifold for me. I like cut the pieces, couldn't do aluminum. Found some rotary engine builder and had him like dowel pin and do the peripheral. He's like, I've never done it like this.
Yeah.
Like, I've only done like the 2-inch hole.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, no, just like right through there. So it's flat flange. And we did that and got that thing in the car running. It was like, I put like 500 miles on that thing. But,
Okay.
but then it blew up when I did my first pulls.
Oh no.
Because we didn't have a dyno. Like
Okay.
Tony's like, I got it. He's like
Oh,
on the
no.
laptop in the passenger seat. Just like doing like half throttle pulls in that thing. And like, it's trying to burn the tires like with just, part throttle and just
Yeah.
it needed so much more fuel than we could ever anticipate.
Yeah,
Right. Because
yeah.
it was like double the power of anything we ever built.
Right.
But yeah, like, so that's like kind of how my relationship with Tony started and began, was because of the RX-7. And
Okay.
so because he had one, but he just wrecked it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I was buying parts off of him for mine. So I bought like the upgraded turbo that
Nice.
his came with. I bought like this little FCD or something like that. Things that, because I think he bought his car, it was like already modded by someone else. So he didn't know too much about it, but knew it had these parts.
Yeah.
So I was buying, driving over to his house, which was like down the street from me. So I was buying those parts from him and putting them onto my car. But it was his friend, God, I forget his name. It's like Supra or something like that. Like he had a Supra, but his name was like Super, something like that. And so anyway, he had, so this was like, I was doing my first engine swap because I blew my motor by trying to modify, not knowing what I was doing, right?
Yeah.
Essentially like was, putting on like a boost controller or something like that, like hook something up backwards and, burn the motor up. Yeah, so something stupid. Or like I think the line fell off the boost sensor. Anyway, so while my car was down and I like sourced a new engine that was like already built and I was just going to swap it in, we went and took his Supra out to our high school parking lot and set up some cones, like actually like a box 90-degree turn. And we went there to try to drift it. Like
Okay.
this is when we first started learning about drifting. It was the first time actually attempting to drift on purpose, not
How
just spinning tires.
How did you learn about drifting at all?
I mean, it was Tony kind of, it was Tony's buddy who was in Japan, who was learning about it and sending us like clips, right?
Okay.
Over like Real Player.
Yeah.
Nice.
YouTube didn't exist.
Yeah.
And so he's like sending us these like super pixelated, potato videos of, guys drifting on the docks. And we're just like, that's freaking cool. And then we
Yeah.
started to like, search around the internet and find, RX-7s and 240s and stuff that were being modified were being used for drift,
Mhm.
right? So then, slammed, chrome wheels, things like that. And we're just like,
Yeah.
that's cool. Like,
Yeah.
that's what I want my car to look like. And so we,
What year was that when you discovered drifting?
like 99.
Oh,
I'd say.
snap.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so it was, no, I take that back. I want to say that was more like 2000 into like 2001,
Okay.
Yeah.
because that was like when my car was down. Because I got my car in like March 2000. It was right before I graduated high school. I was 17. and yeah, I blew it up like in the summer.
Nice.
And so like in the summer after I graduated high school is when we started to learn about drifting, right?
Yeah.
A little bit more so. And that's like I said, I didn't really know Tony at first. I kind of like became friends with him through that summer.
Yeah.
And so we kind of like figured it out together, like via his friend. And so, because
did we mention it's Tony Angelo?
Tony Angelo. I think I said that when I was like, my
Right,
brother was working with
Okay,
Tony Angelo. Yeah,
cool.
but yes,
Yes.
Tony Angelo.
Was that the moment you fell in love with drifting?
Yeah, definitely. Like when we're in that parking lot and like doing it for the first time.
Yeah.
Of course. I mean, you could almost say like you kind of. Yeah, I guess that would be like the moment like I really fell in love with it. But seeing it was like, that's cool. Like
Yeah.
I want to try and do that.
Yeah,
So we
addicted.
went to the high school, set up the cones, and it's like turn in and stand on it, like we didn't know how else to do it. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
get the car sideways, try and catch the wheel, and we're just like, this is crazy. And so that's just like what perpetuated to trying to make more horsepower to spin the
Yeah.
tires and blah,
Yeah.
blah,
Love it.
Mhm.
Love it. Did you guys have diffs?
blah. Well, the RX-7 comes with a clutch diff.
Uh-huh.
So I didn't have one like at first. We learned about like, shimming them. So we like took it apart and stuffed
nice.
soda cans in it, and got it to be a
Soda
little,
cans.
yeah, no, for real.
I love it.
Yeah, we like, you take the little, the puck out, lay it on a, you take a soda can, cut the top and bottom off.
Yeah.
Dude.
Basically
Unroll
just
it.
adding more
Yep,
clutches.
stand it on there and
Yeah.
trace it out,
This
cut it
is
out and
like-
stack it back in.
OG drift tuning. I
Oh,
love
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
The
Damn.
DIY stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
And so, yeah, so from there, I was just like, messing around on the streets. And like, I say that like candidly, but like where we were, there was a lot of empty open roads, right? We're
Yeah.
in Pennsylvania. It's, we're not just like drifting on ramps like you see nowadays, which I don't really condone.
Yeah.
But yeah, not to say that it was any better for me, but this was literally back in like 2001-ish. And there were no events. There was nowhere to
None.
go. And so there was like a, this little like S-turn that was like on the way to my house that I would take from work. And I would kind of like take like the long way, like go down like an extra mile.
So you can do that
left,
turn.
right, and then like get to that little
Yeah.
corner and then go back home.
Yeah.
So I'd hit that turn like, on my way, like as you're rolling up to it, you turn your lights off.
Yeah.
Make sure like no one's coming down the hill.
Yeah.
Turn them back on. Like that was it.
How considerate of you.
Hey. And so from there, like I eventually, I drifted a turn that was like kind of near a neighborhood, not my usual little S turn. So that's on me, right?
Yeah.
And there was a cop there and he saw me, and then thought I was like running from him because like
Yeah.
I drove past him.
Because of
so
your
his
exhibition.
eyes, so his
Yes.
eyes like, focus on the car, and then all of a sudden I get to skid a turn.
Oh.
So he thought I was running, and
Yeah.
it turned into this whole thing.
Yeah.
So that was like my first moving violation, and I lost my license for 6 months.
man.
Oh my
Like they hit
God.
me hard with it. Like
Yeah.
gave me like a reckless.
Yeah.
And so, in that 6 months, I was like, I'm gonna build a race car. so I can't drive it.
It's meant to
So
be.
that was when I did the whole peripheral motor. I put a
Okay.
roll cage in it and everything else. I'm
Nice.
kind of jumping around a little bit. So that was like 2002-ish, where I started to build my car for like big power. I was like still kind of in this in between of like drifting is cool, but like I really like horsepower and like put a big crazy like drag roll cage in the car. But I also was like kind of sort of following the import scene, and like I bought a pair of Volks, got like JICs for it because like I had some blown out like Yahoo Japan shocks on it.
Yeah.
So like, it was like this weird mixture, like, big power street
Yeah.
drift car.
Well, I think so far, like what you are saying in your story, like I could tell that you had a big passion for building
yeah,
and modifying, and you were being creative in the way you were trying to figure out how to make more power. And a lot of people that we talk to, like it's,
They
it's-
wait to copy and order,
They're
from
like,
the mag, right?
Oh,
but there's
Yeah.
there are people that just want to buy things. There are other people that are just they're really into building, or they're really into driving.
yeah.
But like, what was bigger for you?
At the time it was the building, and like it
Yeah.
kind of still is. Like I love projects. I love like
Yeah.
the next project and doing something like that's new and creative.
Yeah.
Of course the driving is fun, but for me, like I really do enjoy the process.
Got
right?
it.
And so yeah, so from there, like, blow that motor up. I'm like, all right, this is getting annoying. And then like I threw in like another motor we just kind of slammed together. That I think that's the one we built at Tony's house. We built like one of the rotary engines in his living room down in Philadelphia. So yeah, I put like 3 or 4 motors through that car before I eventually put the SR into it.
Okay.
And so yeah,
That's
we swapped the
right.
SR in at the beginning of 2003 because that's right. Yeah, it was right before we started the DGTA events. So
Okay.
before Club Loose was DGTA Drift
Yes.
and Gymkhana Trials Association, right?
Yeah.
Nice.
So yeah, Gymkhana actually, you want to go way back with it.
Right.
Yeah, it's not just internet videos. Yeah, I mean, like about Gymkhana and things
Yeah,
like that. Like
yeah.
we used to watch those videos too.
Yeah, and I remember the DGTA events because the videos would make it online.
Mhm.
I forgot where, but I would see them, and you guys. So we were having events on the West Coast. You guys were having them on the East Coast.
They kind of like started almost in parallel.
Yeah,
like the
in
2003 season. Mhm.
Both started in parking lots.
Mhm.
And you're so like we had Taka designing all of our courses. So he comes from like an autocross background. So he would make them very technical, like maybe not as high speed, but like reducing radius, all that technical driving stuff. I remember the DGTA events, like you guys would do like big long sweepers, like just like big S's and
Yeah, I was doing not all, but most of the early course design, like the first couple events.
yeah.
And I actually didn't drive in the very first event because that's when I was doing the SR conversion because I blew my last rotary and it wasn't done yet. So yeah, the first event that we threw, it was like raining. It was kind of crappy, but we still had like 30, 40 people show up. And in those 30 or 40 people, so let me go back. So we were meeting up with, so Eric Jacobs was there. He kind of came and went from DGTA over the years, but Matt Petty was, of course, at the very early on of the E-Town events as well. And so, yeah, the 4 of us, me, Tony, Petty, and Eric, were basically like kind of meeting up and kind of planning out like how to do this. I wasn't really too into the whole like pitch of getting us to E-Town, but I was there for the first day we ever went to E-Town. And we brought Pete Varley, who filmed us drifting around. Like we did a little promo video. So like I laid us out a course and I was drifting the RX-7 in the rotary right before it blew up. And then my buddy Adam Barker was there and Tony was driving his car. And so we shot a little video. We edited it down to like a 50-second thing, like put Black Sabbath over it.
Yep.
And we put it on the internet. And we're like, hey guys, we're throwing a drift event next month. Like, come on out. And Ryan Tuerck saw it and Vaughn Gittin saw it.
Okay.
And, obviously a slew of other people, but, those two being the most recognizable names that came. And so they saw that video and they came to our first event.
Vaughn came all the way from Atlanta? Is that where he was?
No, he was Maryland.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
A matchmaking event.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like meeting of the future stars.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of wild. And
That's very
so,
wild.
yeah, and then like the funny story with that is like, we kind of like after like an event or two, we like befriend Ryan, right? And then he misses an event and his brother, who is his twin, comes to like that next one.
Yeah.
Love it.
And we're just like, hey man, what's going on? He's just like giving us like the cold stare. And we're just like,
What a
this
jerk.
guy's an asshole. And then we're like, oh, he's got a twin brother. He has no idea who we are.
Yeah.
He's like, and his brother's like, who are these freaks?
Yeah.
I think they know me.
Yeah. You don't know me.
Oh my God. I
Yeah,
didn't even
so
know
just
that.
funny little stories like that. And so yeah, in those early months, we're throwing events and we're seeing events happening out in California, and we're like, wow, this like drifting thing's pretty cool. And so then all of a sudden was a D1 driver search, right? And so me and Tony were just like, we gotta do this, right?
Yeah.
And so we rented a Ryder flatbed truck that basically had the box ripped off of it, right? So it didn't have a loading ramp or anything. We had to find loading docks to get our cars onto.
Yeah.
And
my God.
so we rented this truck and we strapped our RX-7s to it and drove all the way across the country to go to the event.
Right.
And it's funny
Wait,
because
before that, there was a Wired magazine article on you guys.
no, that was
that
based on that event.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So us going to California, we had the Wired magazine guy. He was starting to find out about us because of the drifting events. He did come and shoot with us a little bit. And we took him to that little S turn.
Yeah.
And I think he went to one of the E-Town events, but then he went to the D1 driver search as well. Okay. And I think we just like supplied him photos and he added it into the
Got it.
article, right? And so,
But I mean, that was a big deal because drifting wasn't mainstream yet. And especially on the level of when it, Wired Magazine, which is,
it's huge. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. It was like really groundbreaking. And like got like a lot of random attention to the sport, and or to us. So that was really helpful. But yeah, it was funny because like when we come to California, of course, Irwindale, right around the corner.
Yeah.
And we landed here in Arcadia. Like I think we were like crashing out at the hotel right down the street.
Oh
Really?
my gosh.
Okay.
And
Right
so-
now?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And so yeah, we like unload our cars. We find some loading dock, pull our cars off, and we're cruising around here. And we end up over at like Overboost. They like let us use their garage for like an afternoon. We
Where Benson used to work.
I worked there.
yeah.
I don't remember you guys using the garage.
Like we stopped by. I think we were only there for like a couple hours.
Okay.
Yeah, because it was something that like somebody set it up for us. We didn't know anyone there, right? And they're just like, like I know Overboost guys, go there. And we kind of get there, and it was
What
like
a trip.
awkward, and we're just like, yeah, we're good,
Yeah.
I wish I knew. I would have like made it less awkward.
That's like literally a 2-minute drive from here.
Yeah,
It's this
no, I know.
It's on this
That's what I'm
street
saying. Like when
that
I was
we're on.
pulling down the street, I was like, I've been around here.
Yeah. How funny.
Yeah. So we and then neither Tony or I made it past first round. I don't know how far you got.
Same.
Yeah.
It was the same.
So we didn't get past first round, but like the event itself is what was like,
Yeah.
oh my God. Like, the tents, the banners, like
Changed
you guys had
everything.
like your cars all
The
done
vibe.
up, and we just had like, they weren't banged up. They weren't like, a missile car or anything,
Yeah.
but it was just like
They
stock
were
body.
they were your street cars.
Yeah.
They were the cars you drove all the time, right?
Yeah, it was just stock body, no stickers, no
Yeah.
nothing, and we're just
We
like,
all were like that.
Yeah.
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 Oh,
Well, I'd like to think that the Cali cars had a little more style though. Like some of them had body kits, like some of them had like, some like little graphics on them.
Yeah. Well, speaking of
Like cool
style,
wheels.
your FC I thought was really cool looking. It had the Volks on it. It had that. I don't know what kind of front bumper that was. It had like the
was a
little
custom-
FD.
yeah.
It was custom.
Yeah, it was
Okay.
like a custom front bumper that held the 99 lights.
Yeah. I thought it looked sweet. I thought you had a lot of style, and actually, I mean, we'll talk about it more. But
Sure.
I thought for someone who came from the East Coast, where it maybe wasn't as well known for like Japanese car style, I thought you had a lot.
Okay. Yeah.
But like,
Still felt inferior, right? At least in my opinion, because
Yeah.
there was a couple cars that were like really slick, and I'm like when you're really passionate about something, you're like, I want to be the best, right?
Yeah,
And
of
so
course.
so basically it was like, all right, after that event, like we're on our way home, and we're like looking up cars to buy, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm getting rid of this RX-7, I'm getting something better. Like everyone's in Nissans, like we're like outside of like Kyle Mohan, I think was there? No, maybe. Was he there in his first gen?
Yeah.
He might have
I
been
think he
there.
was there.
That event, we met a lot of people. That event,
Mm-hmm.
that's when we saw Sam Hubinet for the 1st time.
Yeah, Reese was there.
Reese was
Yep.
there. Ben Schwartz also made the trip from Florida
Yep.
that event. I forget who else, but that was kind of like the first big event where people traveled from all the other states to come.
Yeah, and so from there, like, so we're just basically like looking up cars to buy. I was
Yeah.
back on the S14 kick again. I was thinking about
Nice.
getting one of those. And so eventually, so this is like, looking back, it's like my first lesson in marketing, right? And so I'm like, well, like, I'm definitely going to sell this car. So I talked to a couple buddies and, was selling off the RX-7, basically put that money down on a brand new Z.
You were already over it.
Yeah. I don't know. I basically was like, I got to get something that's more flashy than this,
Yeah.
right? Because drifting's all about style. You
Yeah.
got to start by having the car recognized, and then you got to perform. And so like I knew there was 2 layers to it. And I did feel that was kind of part of the reason why we didn't get as far, because I didn't like spin, I didn't like crash out or anything.
Uh-huh.
Like I got through the course. Like I'm not saying like I killed it and got ripped off,
Yeah.
but like I did feel that like the car wasn't really up to snuff for like the D1
Okay.
level, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm like, all right, like I got to get something that's like cleaner, flashier, better. And
Yeah.
so sold the car, got the Z, and God, I made payments on that thing for like 5 years.
Yeah.
So like it's blown up, stripped down roll cage. I'm still paying like $350 a
That's
month for that
crazy.
thing.
Oh,
So from
damn.
someone
But, yeah.
from someone on the outside, like when you showed up with the Z,
Mhm.
that silver Z, we were all like, dude, where does this guy get all his money from? We didn't know you were making
All
Borrow
that
it.
money.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all this
All
money.
that money.
No, we had no idea. And I should have asked you about it. I didn't. But like the rumors were like you had like you came from money,
Mhm.
or like, oh, there's that rich kid with the brand new Z, because no one was drifting brand new cars back then.
No.
They were all, they were all S13s, E86s, FCs, or whatever. They're all old.
Yeah.
And so like that did make you stand out a lot because
Fake it till you make it, brother.
Yeah. That's wild. Yeah.
So that's what I was saying. Like, yeah, like looking back, like I didn't realize that like that's like the mentality I was like kind of churning up there. Like I got to get, something new, something flashy, something people are going to remember and notice. And so when I came back, so I get the car, started doing mods to it. We were working with like Auto R&D out of NorCal. So I was like buying parts from him. And, so we got like nice Volks on that one again, like did a supercharger on it, like body kit, and just got the car like, a little bit more power, cool wheels, body kit. And that was basically it. Like didn't have too much else on it, coilovers. And so come back out, basically load everything back up, head back out to California, end up at that hotel again, going back to Irwindale again for the Falken tire show off, which was like early October 2003.
Yep.
And I finished 5th in that event. That's where I met Di. That's where I met.
That was the third drift show off when we were on the infield of Irwindale.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it was big bank into like a full 180, transfer back to the right on the lower bank.
Yeah, good memory.
Yeah. And so did that and finished like 5th, which I thought was great. And so I immediately started to like get some recognition. That's when the Signal. Let's go back to Signal for a second. So rewind for a minute. So Signal's doing their tours, right?
Yeah.
And so they are, going around doing little drift shows, and that's
bringing the Signal twins all around the country.
Yep. Yeah. And it was like put on by BFG. They had the big BFG stickers on there, and so they were doing like a couple random shows, and somehow I don't know who made the connection, but we got them to come. I say we as in like the Club Loose guys, DGTA guys, E-Town. They got them to come to. It was the Drift Out Wednesday of like, what would it be? September. So it was the last Drift Out Wednesday that I went to before I moved, which was, so end of September 2003, going out in October. And basically I'm there ripping around in the Z, and they're just like, man, like this car is really cool, and like they're, Tanabe's there, Edo's there.
Yeah.
And the Bai and Croy, RIP. He's checking out the car, and they're like super into it, and they're just like, wow, brand new Z drift car, this is awesome.
Yeah.
And so they're like, hit us up when you get to California, right? I was like, yeah, we'll do. Yeah. And so week later, go out, get 5th, and then I hit them up, and they're like, yeah, you did really good, at the event. I was like, yeah, pretty pumped on that. And then we just started having conversation. It was like, we want to work with you. And so that was when they obviously wanted to utilize the car, right? I'm not upset about that by any means, but it was like, oh, like let's sticker up your car, and like it was basically like we made it look like the twins car. I don't know if you remember, we gave it the Signal stripes and the scheme and everything. Yep. They gave me a set of the Tanabe coilovers in exchange for the JICs, like things like that. And so this was like my first like sponsored parts, right? And so it was like for them, showcasing their parts for a brand new car, right? And so like I'm kind of like I said, just like kind of landing myself in the right just time and place. And so with that, I was getting their support. And so all of a sudden now I have Signal stickers on the car, and I'm going to like, the drift days. And it's once again, I'm sure it's like, who the hell's this guy? And so it was just kind of, one simple move of basically throwing my RX-7 money at, getting a Z and like borrowing some cash. Basically like, in all honesty, like I was supposed to go to college. I didn't go to college. I borrowed money against that to build the Z.
Right.
And it was kind of like, I'm going to give this a shot.
Yeah.
Right. And it worked.
And you were working at Signal, weren't you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So then they made me a tech there. So I was working there. Not too much on customer cars, but I was like helping with like the demo cars, like kind of, being like a tech on the team, if you will. Yeah. And so I was like working there, making some money there. Before I moved, I was working at a restaurant, and I was making a lot of money there. And so like I was like a food expediter and a bar back. And so just like making like a lot of cash, and just like working my ass off, making like, a couple grand a month, no problem, with like zero overhead. So that was like a lot of it that helped propel, to get the car built and to get the Californian stuff. My parents did obviously help me with, like I said, like me convincing them to get some of the money to put towards the car to build it. Like, that's how I pay for the supercharger, and that's how I pay for like the wheels and stuff.
Yeah.
And so that was, that's what kind of helped it get together at first. And then the rest of it was on me to get out there. The Dodge, like, I don't know if you remember, like I remember that new Dodge.
Yeah.
So that was the one thing that they helped me with, like, because I had a S10 pickup, like I was all ready to go. I had it loaded up on the trailer, like, Z was on the trailer, and my pickup truck was hooked up to it, and I was leaving the next morning, right, for here.
Yeah.
And my parents go like, there's no way, like, we're going to let you leave in that truck. Yeah. And I'm like, I'm fine. I'm ready to go. It's literally packed.
Yeah.
And so, and they're like, no. Like, we'll trade the truck in. And it was like, like, we'll trade the truck in and we're going to get something better. Right. And so I'm like, okay,
That's
like, I didn't want, and I didn't want to turn that down, of course. And so, but, it's kind of funny full circle. So we do that, and I just like hand over my truck, and, they get, this Dodge, hook it up, drive out, and I had it for, out here for like 8 months or so.
Mm-hmm.
And then, essentially, like, I'm starting to work in the garage. I'm able to pay my bills and stuff, and I wasn't able to like pay for the truck. And so it was, like the next summer, they were just like, my parents basically hit me with, they're like, well, like, if you can't pay for the truck, like, we need it back. Right. Yeah. And so I was like, okay, well, I already gave my other truck up.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know how this really works out for me. And so then, so like my brother like flew out for Irwindale, which was like August 2004, the first year of Irwindale, and like jumps in the truck and drives it home. And so I'm like,
you got repoed.
I know, it totally did. And so like I know. So like I was saying, like like how you're like, oh, who's this like rich kid coming up with all this? And like it was very much like, like I said, just borrowing against whatever I could to try and like get the hype up, and not the hype, but just like getting like, oh yeah, I guess it was
just
with
getting
with
noticed,
the Z,
right?
yeah. And so the truck gets repoed, and I went and bought like a $600 motorcycle so I could get around, because I didn't have any street vehicle, right? Because I just had my Z. And so at that point, that was so end of 04. So that was like I got kicked out of my apartment because me and Tony and a couple other people were partying there, and they got mad at us, kicked us out. And so that's when we moved into Rotary Secret 7.
Okay.
So we're living in the back of Rotary Secret for that summer.
I do remember that.
So things kind of went a little weird for a minute there.
Yeah.
Well, we're just crashing out and trying to make it.
Let's go back a little bit. I want to go back to Signal a little bit.
Yeah.
So you worked there, and I remember they let you drive one of the Signal Twins cars. You were regularly coming out to our Drift Day events. Yeah. And you were driving. You brought everything. You brought the truck, the rig, or the the.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Like it was just like a perfect scenario, like a perfect storm of like time and place. Yeah. Like I was saying.
What was it like? I mean, I remember you also came out by yourself. So on one hand, a lot of us were jealous that you got to drive that car, because that car was so formative for a lot of us to be able to see Japanese drivers on that level driving, and then it was always in that car early on, and then you got to drive it. But not only did you bring it, you were the only one there. You were working on it yourself, so we had a lot of respect for you because of that.
Well, that's cool. Thanks. And so it was like kind of same thing there, like because that was, I think, when we were doing that was after Vegas, SEMA, I should say, SEMA 2003. So we're like, 1 month after I get there, the Falken Drift show off, make the connection with Signal. They, bring me in. We logo up the car, put the coilovers on. We did this one drift demo out at California Speedway. You might have been there. That was when Vaughn first came out for the first time. Yes. It was put on by like US Drift.
Yes, I remember. And Team Orange was there.
Yeah, so they were there again. And I'm sorry, not again. From D1. Yeah. So anyway, they were out there, and I got to do some tandem with them because they're like, oh, we want to chase in the Z. And so that was like my one and only real event that I did with the Z, with all the Signal livery on it. Before we got to Vegas, SEMA 2003, when we're doing demos with BF Goodrich and Signal, and I blew up the VQ. Right. Yeah. And so that was So that was the same event, SEMA. That was my first SEMA getting out there, and that's when Forma Drift announced Forma Drift. Yeah. Right. And so they're like, oh, next year we're gonna have a national championship, and I'm like looking at the Signal guys. I'm like, this is it, right? Like, this is what we're doing. And so my car was down. We're doing the SR conversion into it. I basically bought one of their motors that they had as a backup for the twins. And me and Tony and Mike Edwards, Carluch, we were stuffing it into the stuffing it into the Z.
Yeah.
And so that was when I was taking the 180 out.
Okay, because your car was down.
Yeah, and they're like,
Okay.
you can drive, like, we want you to keep driving so you can drive this car. And I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
I'll take that.
Well, what was it like?
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
What was it like? 'Cause I don't know anyone else who was able to drive that car. What was it like?
I mean, it was very eye-opening because it had like the response and the power and like just the angle that like we weren't really used to, right? And so, of course, like a supercharged VQ like just spins up the tires, but it doesn't really go anywhere, right? So that was the first time driving like a properly set up car, and that's like what really taught me that like, oh, the parts isn't just the end all be all, right? You have to get your wheels pointed the right way, and you got to set your angle and set your toe and everything else. And so I was like, wow, you can, gain so much just by having a little knowledge on the car setup. So that's what I really learned from driving that car.
That was huge.
How a car should feel.
That was huge because the Japanese weren't like bestowing all this knowledge on us, right? And I remember when the Signal cars first came, everyone was trying to like see what they did to make the car good. And people were taking pictures, kind of guessing they were doing this and doing that. None of us really knew. And none of us knew what it felt like either. So for you to just have the car in your hands, to like, see what was going on and how it felt, like that was huge. Yeah,
because it was always a guessing game before that, right?
Yeah.
And so trying to figure out how to, what feels good and what doesn't, what tire pressure you should run, and, just stupid little things like that. And so once you just, once you drive a Cadillac, for lack of better words, you're like, oh, this is how it's supposed to feel.
Yeah.
And so now you have a target because you've never felt that feeling, right? Of someone who has 5 to 10 years of drifting experience and has been slowly tuning their car. And then all of a sudden it's like, here you go. Like, this is the goal.
Yeah. Okay.
So it kind of helped fast forward to get that Z dialed in.
Nice.
By FD, which, so then like fast forward like 6 months from there, we were all in Atlanta for the first FD event. And so the car was working pretty well.
How was your Signal deal? Like, you kind of said no. Yeah, I got a hint there. But I mean, when you initially got the Signal deal and they put the livery on your car, and it's kind of like your first real deal, right? So would you say that they were taking advantage of you, or were you naive, or like were they paying you?
I wouldn't say like that's why I was like trying to backpedal. I wasn't like I don't feel like I was being taken advantage of. It was more so that because I had like no prior sponsorship or anything like that before that. So for any company to give you recognition, give you access to their shop, allow you to park your truck and trailer there, as we know now, like that's got a heavy cost. You can't just put those things anywhere. So give me a place to work, give me a place to store my things, and also like the knowledge and the sharing of information, and obviously like some parts here and there, like a couple hand-me-down used parts, and then Tanabe. Tanabe was my very first partner. Yeah. And so like
we were both sponsored by Tanabe at the same time.
And so they were the first company to like give me a part for free, right? Essentially, well, as people say, nothing's free. Yeah. You're working for it in some capacity, but as in my first sponsored part, right? And so always have a huge respect for those guys for doing that.
And SSR.
Yeah, and then it turned into SSR. Yeah. So like that was like 06 was when they absorbed SSR, and then I got to put some of those sweet wheels on the car. But it was always with James and Jiro over there. So solid dudes. Yeah. And Edo, of course.
Yes.
And so so anyway, like it was, to me, it was just like pure excitement, and like I said, like I'm not like just getting paid or anything like that, obviously, but just to have the support and the knowledge and some equipment is, for us at the time, that was life-changing. And that's why, like, once again, I think that's what helped kind of propel me in those early years, was having that very, very short window. I mean, it was only really like 4 months with the Signal guys, because I came in, we came in hot and heavy, logoed up the car, did a couple events with them, got to drive their car, like, love it. Like I said, no hard feelings at all, but it just turned into, as I was like, so like FD. And they're like, well, we can't afford that. Like, we can't like help you with that. Yeah. And so, because they had their commitments with BFG, and obviously doing FD was going to be a heavy cost. And so I was like, well, like, that's my goal. It's my passion. Like, I need to be there. Like, I can't just miss this wave. Like, once again, it's like everything's just been building and pushing in this one direction. I was like, I can't slow down now. And so, and it was, it was, no, there was no hard feelings. It was a very mutual, like, well, we can't help you. And like, we understand. And that's why, like, I continued to work with Tanabe, right? But Signal is like, we can't support you to do the events. And so that's where Motorex came in. So, so I got a call from, Clay, who worked over there, and was basically like, oh, like, I heard you, might be like a free agent, if you will. So he just heard, like, like, I don't even know how he found out, but somehow through the grapevine, probably through Ken, because Ken's always in the talks. And it was like, so I was looking for a partner to help me get to FD. And so Motorex was involved with it via Uchi was a judge, and they were going to send their car around to do demos. And so that it'd be cool to have 2 Zs. Right. And I was like, sounds great. And so then I basically like moved my stuff from Signal over to Motorex. And then it was kind of the same thing. I was being paid to be a tech at their shop, working on cars. I did get to work on my car a bunch there. And like, I got to the car's already done, built and running with the SR in it. It was just kind of like finishing some things up and getting it ready for FD. And so with that, like I said, still working with Tanabe and those guys. And like I said, it was like no hard feelings.
There was a Japanese guy at Motorex doing engine tuning.
Blast. That was Blast tuning.
That's right.
Next door.
Did he help tune your car?
He tuned my car, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
He tuned Nadine's car too.
He tuned my car too. Street tune.
I forget.
Always street tune.
Oh yeah.
Always street tune.
I know. There was one time he came out to it was the Falken show off at Irwindale at the end of 04. And I just put a new motor in, and he tuned that thing in the pit off the rev limiter.
Oh my gosh.
Nice.
He's just like, what? He's like, all right, you're ready. And I'm like, that's the tune? But it ran. It ran great.
Dozo.
I forget his name.
Yeah.
I can't remember either.
I just remember Blast.
Yeah, he was cool. So, so we got support from him. So, like, once again, not being, like, paid like in sponsorship, but like already had some assets, working these like light jobs, covering my bills, but just getting a lot of support because drifting was so new, right? And so like there like all these companies that were into drag racing and things like that, all of a sudden they're like, well, we got to market somewhere else, and FD was new, and so they were just like, boom. So like to get free tuning, free garage space, that those are heavy expenses that like most people would have to take on, and so that's where I was very fortunate in those early years to be able to have, like I said, the access to a great car to compare mine to, the access to good tuners and things like that. And it was mostly because of the Z, because once again, like I got the connection to Motorex because they're like, we have a Z. We want, let's make a match. They're 2 silver cars.
What was really cool to me was you were working with a lot of Japanese companies, and that kind of added to the mystique of like, like, oh, Chris has all this.
Who's
like,
this weird white kid?
No, not that.
Seriously.
But I mean, like,
how did he get that?
You had relationships with all these companies that had a deep tradition with import cars tuning. Like they've been in Option Magazine and videos and stuff, and like that I think that added to me. My understanding of you just having like good style and like really respecting where drifting came from and all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that I wicked it up a bit with the Z. Like I got like Vertex body kit, like Volk wheels again, like things like that. Yeah, so it's like I knew the look I was going for. Yeah, but I mean, I'm not gonna lie, like a majority of my success in those early years is due to having that Z. Yeah. And so, like I said, looking back, it was like that was the smartest thing I ever did.
Oh, yeah.
Because, I mean, like I said,
it was a big gamble, but it paid off.
Yeah. And so, like I was saying, like I literally was making payments on that thing till like 2008. Yeah. And it was like rusting in the back.
You weren't
of
even driving it. I
remember
you were making payments on it. Yeah. It couldn't even go anywhere. It was just sitting.
So that's what I mean, where it's like, I was like, oh, where did all this come from? I was like, a small down payment and like a couple $100 a month. Yeah, like you can.
Yeah. But I think
you can stretch things out.
Yeah, and I think that
but no one's ever thought to do that. I think at that time.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that goes down to that notion when even in business, people tell me all the time, they're like, you need to act as if you were the best in the world, even though you'd not, and you might feel like an imposter, but you need to just hold a higher standard. And I think it's like you were doing that, and look where it got you.
just the fact that you and Tony were coming out to all the events out here from the East Coast, I think more than anybody has showed us, the California guys, just like, these guys are dedicated. They're not messing around here. They're not here to just try. They're here to, compete.
Oh yeah.
I also think that being from LA or California even, it made us lazy. Right, like we were just amongst all of this stuff all the time.
So much access,
right? Well, you had to work for it, and it was for you to do the things that we were doing. It took more out of you, and so it made you maybe more hungry, more just inspired you to work harder.
Yeah, and I mean, we literally came from like. My garage space was a dirt floor in my parents' barn.
Yeah,
I took one of the old stalls where the horses were essentially, and we like cleared it out, and it was one bay, just like about the size of this room.
Yeah, and
that's where I built my car.
Yeah,
love it.
That's wild.
We gotta get some pictures. You got pictures, right?
Some, yeah.
We gotta get some.
I got like, sorry, I got like freaking like 40 from today alone, but like
yeah.
I can count like 10 pictures of my RX-7. It's like you think about it, it's just like the lack of photos the further back you go is insane.
Because you had to physically carry a camera with you. Yeah. Right. So
go get it developed.
I know. You were just like living it, and you weren't like, oh, let me stop and take a photo of my car, because it's like, that's my car. It's right there. Why do I need to take a picture of it?
Right.
Times have changed.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. It's like every day it's just like click. Like, oh, did you forget this? Click. Is this yours?
It's like 10 photos a day. We'd be clicking like.
I literally have 50,000 photos on my phone.
Yeah.
It's like ridiculous.
Yeah. It's always full.
Yeah.
It's always full too. Right. So love it.
And so, it's like trying to dig back and find those certain things is difficult. But it exists, and so in those early years, and that's when we started doing, so like, DA was kind of kicking off, and, we're like basically taking like, skate culture into drifting and being like, we're going to do like videos and things together, right? Because, together we're stronger than, just being an individual. And so that's when like, myself and Tony and Tuerck and Vaughn and all that started like doing, some videos together. And, that propelled the first, Driftlines DVD, which was like for sale in Walmarts and things like that. Yeah. We got an advance from an entertainment company, to make the DVD.
You guys had an agent by then, right? I thought you
sort
did.
of. No, it was the guy. No, we got our first managers in 2007.
Okay.
But yeah, our first DVD in like 2005, basically like someone who was all hyped up on drift, like in 2004 time. Came from Destroy Entertainment, I want to say it was, and he was like, "Yeah, like we'll give you guys like $20,000, go make a DVD."
Yeah,
and we're just like, "Great." And so once again, it's an advance, like it's a loan. If you don't make it, you gotta pay back.
Yeah.
We get the advance, and we basically like just put it towards paying for our camera guy to like go to FD events, and we did our first Bad as Hell DVD, which once again, like 80% of drift fans probably never seen, right?
Yeah.
But at the time, it was like one of the only DVDs, and so like that helped propel a lot. That was filmed during the year of when we were all on Falken together.
Yeah.
So it was the first year of blue and teal cars. Me, Tony, Hampton, and Vaughn are in blue and teal cars.
Yeah.
And we're just like, so it's just 4 wide, doing demos and things like that. And it was just, it was cool. It was a spectacle.
That was the first and only year you didn't drive a Z.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, still a Nissan powered Nissan, but it was the S15. Yeah.
That S15, what is the history of that S15? Was that?
It was purchased, so Password JDM owned the chassis, and the car was cut in half to come to America.
Right, that's right. Yeah.
So there was like cuts through the A-pillars, and the whole floor had a big cut across it. Right?
Yeah.
And
Parts car.
And so bring it in, they weld it back together, and Falken works the deal out for that chassis. And I think that chassis was originally offered to, I think Calvin. Can't remember.
Mm-hmm.
I think they offered it to him first, and he didn't want it because it was right-hand drive, and so he did the G. And then so I was like, I'll drive right-hand drive. I don't care, because I had driven the Signal car a couple times.
Oh, right.
And I was like, I can handle it.
Yeah.
And it was cool. I was like, caveat. And I was like, I'll do the S15. Because they were like, what are we going to do with this? Who's going to drive it? Right. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, I'll do that if I can get a sequential for it.
Okay.
And they're like, deal. I was like, great.
Nice.
So then the car was, we were basically taking on the build too. And
Yeah.
so we we brought the car over to a warehouse out in Sun Valley, where Clay, who was the guy from Motorex, started his shop. And
Autolink.
Was
it Autolink?
No, it was
Different Clay?
C2 Powerhouse.
Okay.
Yeah, different Clay. Yeah. And so we started the build there, and that's where those photos that kind of pop up on the internet every once in a while of me and Tony in our Falken overalls with the S15 on the lift,
Yeah.
drifting.com.
Yeah.
So that was like, yeah, cars basically, that was my first time getting hands on the car, right? It was like back from painting, and we're like starting to work on it, and like things were like, we weren't really meshing with the shop owners, so we're moving out. And so that's when I got linked up with Kevin Wells. And so we took the chassis over to Kevin's shop, who Kevin was basically the tech handling. He built Hubert Young's car, and he was like kind of doing some maintenance on the other Falken cars. And so took the car to him, and we put that thing together in like 3 weeks or something like that. And basically got it loaded up, like no testing or anything, sent it out to Wall, and the car was ripping. It was great, but I broke both axles in qualifying, right? And that's when we did back-to-back qualifying.
Right.
So like pulled out, snapped the axle halfway through the run, and then that was it. Like couldn't swap it, no 5 minute, nothing like that.
Yeah.
So like didn't qualify that event. That was like one of the only events I've ever not qualified. And I think the only one actually, when I think about it. And then from there, we slowly developed the car throughout the year, continuing to work on it back at his shop, and eventually got my first win in that car at Irwindale 05.
Yeah.
Shout out.
Yeah.
Irwindale.
Was that
It all goes back to Irwindale.
Yeah.
It always goes back to Irwindale.
About 10 minutes down the street.
Yeah, right there. Drove right by it on the way here.
Was that the event where you were shooting flames out the bottom of the engine?
Yeah. It was running pretty spicy.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it was throwing fireballs. It was awesome.
That went with your aesthetic, though. That's good. Yeah, it works.
Yeah.
Oh.
That was a cool one. So yeah, and then from there it just so the rest of the story for the S15 was it basically we win the event, and that's the last time I ever saw that car.
Wow.
It the Passer JDM guy, I mean from what I'm told, right? So there's always 3 sides of the story. From what I was told, it's like the owner of the chassis, right? Because it was like we got the parts for it, like Falken paid for some of the work on it. Blitz supplied us with like the turbo kit and the performance parts, and then like SPL supplied us with like the links and Tane, the coilovers, and blah blah blah. So anyway, we get the car, win the event, and they wanted to take the car back to their shop to do a photo shoot with it, right? And that's the last time I ever saw it. And it was always like, "Where's the car? Where's the car?" And it's like, we can't get it back, type thing.
What?
And that was kind of
Stolen?
Did the photo shoot happen?
I don't know. I mean,
Oh, wow.
technically he owned the car, and so I don't know if it was a slip of paperwork or
Oh, wow.
whatever, but it was like, like we never got the parts back. Maybe Falken did
Oh,
eventually,
wow.
because I was only with Falken for one more year after that.
Yeah.
But as far as like that car goes, like that was the last time I ever saw it.
Yeah. So, but you do see an S15 in Falken colors doing demos still?
That's
But that's a different one.
that was the old Taguchi
That's
car.
or
Taniguchi.
Taniguchi.
Taniguchi, sorry.
Yeah.
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 Taguchi's a current
All
FD
right. So
driver.
if you're listening and you know what happened to the password JDM.
Last I heard, it was in NorCal in a garage. Someone told me they like
Really?
saw it.
They
Oh,
saw
okay.
it.
They're like, oh, like
They
we know
saw
where
the
you're-
weld marks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't mistake that one. But it was just funny. So yeah, we brought an S15 to FD back in 05. It was
Yeah,
pretty
that's
rad.
awesome.
Yeah, thing looked good. M Sport kit on it and everything.
Yeah. It looked really good.
Yeah.
This episode is brought to you by Lot USA. Lot USA has been the master distributor of Brid racing seats for the past 18 years. Celebrating their 42 years in operation, Brid manufactures high-quality performance products for circuit, drag, GT, and drift.
Nadine and I have always run Brid seats in our cars, and even today, Brid seats are the latest mod in our new drift car. Our favorite seats are the FIA-approved Zeta 4 and the reclinable bucket seat, the Stradia 3.
One of the latest releases from Brid is the Zeta 4 Vireo, which is a size small version of the Zeta 4 for petite drivers. Visit lot-usa.com for more info and follow them on IG at lot_USA. This episode is brought to you by Barnaby. Bartleby is a car builder and tuner in the Central Texas, Austin area. In addition to other Nissans like the 350Z, they specialize in GTRs, R32 through 35, and has over 10 years experience. In terms of tuning, they work with most standalone ECUs like Motec, M-Tron, Link, Haltech, and AEM, to name a few. Bartleby has tuned some of our friends' infamous cars, including J-Spec Sam's blue R32 GTR. When we get our GTR, we know where we're sending it to get tuned: Bartleby. For more info, visit bartleby.com and be sure to check out their dyno tuning videos on IG at Bartleby.
So you have been in FD since day one, since it started.
Yeah, me and Ken are the only two drivers that have been to every round.
What about Kyle Mohan?
Mohan didn't come until Irwindale.
Oh,
so
that's
he
right.
was 04.
All right, he doesn't count.
So
sorry,
shout
Kyle.
out to Kyle for being there every year.
Yeah.
And like he missed an event or two in 2020 COVID year. But regardless of all that, he did show up to 04. So he's been like an OG guy for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, like technically Ken and I are the only ones that have physically gone to every event.
That's a pretty amazing feat.
Yeah. And the other one that I'm super proud of is I went to the finals the very first FD. So got second place, first FD ever. So basically have like always been, kind of running for the podium. So, obviously like people kind of, go in waves. My career obviously has gone in waves with like, new cars and engine programs and things like that. But just to be able to say like, we were like a front runner from day one.
That's a good thing to say, because you weren't just there every year.
Mm-hmm.
You have the third most wins
amongst
everyone.
I have the most podiums, and I think the most top 3 championship finishes too. I have 8 out of well, it was a good record for a minute. I haven't gotten one in a few years, but especially after 2016. We had because what would that have been? Only like 14 years of FD, and we went to top 3 8 times.
Yeah.
So I've only finished outside of or lower than 6th place like twice.
Yeah. So I remember when you think FD has changed so much throughout the years, and you can see the way the car setups have changed, the rules change, tuning styles, change. And there was a good, I forgot when it was, but there was a good amount of time where you were the most consistent guy out there. And like people that were doing really well, they would have an off day because they would have car problems, but your car was always reliable.
Yeah, that was when we're doing the V8 especially. Yeah. So it was just, we were one of the first teams to do a V8 conversion into a car that didn't come with one, and that gave us just crazy reliability. Yeah. Because at the time it was still like trying to make big power turbo cars, and it was kind of difficult. We went through a couple SRs.
What's a lot of horsepower back then?
Oh my God. Well, the funny part is that the S15 and/or the 350 in the first year made more power than my V8 car. I was making 320 to the ground in 07.
Nice.
Okay.
And we took that to 2nd overall that year.
Yeah, but you had a lot of torque, right? And that made a big difference, right?
It would help, yeah. And like this was before like we're putting like a lot of grip down, right? I mean, we had like decent, but it was still like you just got to get through the course, right? And so, like you said, the consistency is what would win. You didn't have to have the most insane lap because people were just all over the place. Crashing out, spinning out, making mistakes. Tandem still wasn't really close yet, so it was like, if you can just get through that course, like, 80% or better every single time, like that's how you win.
No, now that you said that, I do remember that. And that actually, when that was happening and you were not making that much power, but you're so consistent and you were finding success through it. I remember like the early days of our days at like Drift Day. And we were blowing engines, or you were blowing engines then. Like you were blowing a lot of SRs. Yeah. It's like, it seemed like for a while, every single event you were blowing an SR. Yeah. And
I went through like 5 in the 350.
Yeah. And your car was always on trailer and you're leaving. I would say, hey, what happened? See you later. And I was driving. I remember I was driving the yellow car. I don't know if you remember that yellow sticker.
The yellow one was sick.
Yeah, you're asking me like, I was like, it was making 420 horsepower, and you're like, what's in it? Why is it not blowing? And I'm like, I mean, it's not blowing. I mean, it was a stock SR that had like, we did not change the internals or anything. I don't know if you remember this conversation where you're like, if we blow it, we'll just change the engine. You know, there's not all the machining and all the that stuff that goes along with the build. And so it just made it easier. So I always thought, I don't know if that had anything to do with him like seeking out consistency with the engine builds and stuff like that. But
well, the funny thing is, and so yeah, we went through a bunch of SRs, and like I don't know if this is true, but it felt true at the time. The Motorex guys, they gave me a wrinkle red valve cover.
Okay,
right?
yeah,
and,
I remember that valve cover. Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this thing is sick. And so like we put it on the car, and like we got a rod knock. Swap the motor, swap the valve cover, got a rod knock. Swap the motor, swap the valve cover, got a rod knock.
Yeah.
And I think it was like after like the third time, someone's like, maybe that valve covers, because they'd see like the car come back out and there's the same valve cover on. So it's like, someone with more intelligence than me at the time is like, what's the constant here? Right. So, putting in a new motor, but you're putting this valve cover back on. So I don't know if they were basically, insinuating that so like got debris in it and sand in it and things like that. And so it's breaking the motors.
Cursed.
Yeah.
When you were telling the story, I thought you were going that direction, that it's cursed, but it could actually be something.
Not getting it fully cleaned, from a prior blown up motor. And not understanding how just like giving it a wipe down or like a quick little brake clean isn't enough.
But that was also an S13 SR valve cover, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
So
it was always S13. Yeah.
So we know that the S13 valve cover is missing some baffling, oil baffling, and something to do with the, I don't know. There's the valve that goes out to the catch can, and like it's just designed differently.
Yeah. Don't really exactly know what the problem is, but the long story short is, I eventually, because we were doing a demo, this was like when another reason why we had a lot of fun back then is because with Drift Alliance we would get hired to do demos, right? And so Vaughn, he was the business side of that, and me and Tony just made sure the cars showed up, right? And so he would line up the demos and we would fix the cars. And so we were super tight on time. Tony's in my old RX-7 because that thing did a big loop around of ownership and landed back to him. And he drove that at the first FD event ever. He drove it from Pennsylvania to Atlanta. Yeah. And then entered it in the competition. So that car became his demo car when we were all on the Falken cars, right? And so we had to do a motor swap on him and a motor swap on mine, right? A pair of SRs. And Kevin at the time, he had an NA SR engine, right? Bone stock, right? Just like you. And I specifically remember not putting the valve cover on that one, right? So that was like I said, I don't know if that was a part of it because like I said, it's just having debris and metal shavings, things like that. And anyway, so we put this NASR in, we fire a hole in the oil pan, put a turbo drain in it. We do the old Honda move and run we put the old oil pickup on the backside of the motor over by the filter. And that thing was doing 400 wheel for years. Years. Yeah.
Wow.
And it's just so funny how sometimes, it's you just kind of got to dumb it down.
That's weird.
And just have a clean, proper engine with a good tune and it'll go forever.
Yeah.
Agreed.
It's you can't let the magic smoke out.
Right. Right.
Keep it in there.
Yeah.
Keep it in there.
That's how SRs work.
Yeah. That's how mine works.
The magic blue smoke.
Yeah. It's in there somewhere.
Yeah. So so let's talk about how much FD's changed. It's changed a lot. What do you think is what's the current state of Formula D? What do you think of how it's going?
Let's see. I do think that FD is doing the best job that they can, right? It's tough. It's easy to get pissed off when you don't win. It's easy to blame judges. It's easy to blame, anyone but yourself, right? Yeah. And so I know there's a lot of animosity towards FD. And, I have in the past as well, right? Just being this should be this way. This should be that way. But I do think that they are doing a fantastic job. The growth rate is insane. The amount of fans that are coming out to the events is crazy. We're hitting new audiences, new venues, and we're still bringing a big crowd. And so I know that they're doing a great job at that. there's a few things that I think could make the series better. But that basically comes down to mostly just the rules, right? And like car builds, because the car builds are just getting out of control.
Yep.
And that's what pushed a lot of people out, right? Is because you
They can't afford it
and can't keep up. And that's what's made the cars now to be a lot more unreliable, right? And so we're hitting, these obnoxious numbers of 1,200 horsepower, right? And like
insane.
Yes, the cars,
that's insane.
at the current point, the cars do need that much power.
Yeah.
Like when I go around Irwindale, that thing is foot down.
Yeah.
Like full power, and it's digging. And so it's because we have so much mechanical grip, we have so much grip from the tires.
Yeah.
And the knowledge of the teams being able to use sway bars and alignments and wedge and spring rates and all these things, like effectively, like we can load our car up on the Irwindale bank, no problem.
Yeah.
We will sometimes, we'll typically run my car around like 950 wheel. And like we will push it up to like over 1,000 wheel for Irwindale sometimes. Because like you need to get that breathing on the pedal back instead of just, winging it and hoping for it. Like it's, 2004, just trying to make it.
Send it.
Yeah, because you can generate that much power out of the car or that much grip out of the car, which sucks the power out of them. And so, I honestly think like we just need to dumb these cars down a little bit because, it's still going back to, the people that have the most ability to build the best car have the, the greatest chance. Obviously still comes down to the driver, but you have the greatest chance to succeed, right? Because the better the car is, the easier it is to drive. And with that, the way the current power levels are, you have to have a rock solid engine program. And the thing that kind of kills us, we've done all different kinds of engine setups. The nitrous V8 setup was clearly our best. We had our most successful years with that, and I haven't gotten a top 3 since we came off of that. Full transparency. Like we've been trying to make the turbo setup work as best we can. We've gotten some podiums, but it's obviously a way more difficult package for us. And so, it's some people have figured it out really well, and Papa Doc's obviously being one of them. And so, but the thing is, so we had 2 engine failures this year. One was like kind of the team's fault, and one was a block failure, like we cracked the block. But anyway, the problem is when they blew, it was like Saturday morning.
Yeah.
And the fastest we've done an engine swap with the current parts and products and everything else was like 3.5 hours. And so it's not enough time.
Okay.
So this off season, like right now, we've been working on getting like a, basically like crank pulley to the transmission, like, through the clutch, bell housing and everything, like one
just
big
ready to
full
go.
unit. Because, we have custom intake manifold, custom turbo manifolds. We have, like custom dry sump brackets, custom alternator brackets. And so we would have to swap all those things across.
Things also changed round to round, right? So if you...
not necessarily.
Okay.
But it was more so like we carried a spare engine, but it was just, valve covered oil pan.
Yeah.
And so if we blew a motor, we'd be swapping every single one of those parts across, like block off plates, things like that. So this off season, we're literally just like making more of all those spares, still carrying like the spare pieces, but like trying to have that package so we can do an hour engine swap.
Yeah.
Because, like Osbo's car and Tuerck's car, like, they're running in the top 3. And it's not because they don't have any engine failures. It's because they can swap it in time. So like, they'll go through 2 or 3 motors in a year, no problem. Yeah. But they're, once it starts to show its signs that it's about to break, they're just like,
swap
pull it in, and they're back out.
Yeah,
they might miss some practice, but they're going.
Yeah.
And for us, it's just like, if we don't make that call like the night before, then we're out.
Done.
Yeah.
And so it's, that's like the big thing we're working on because in those years where we're, pushing for championships, we have no failures.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's not just about like not having a single engine failure, it's being able to handle it appropriately when it does come.
Right.
So
that's a trip to me because, when we were first doing Formula D, you were a baller if you had an extra trans.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's what I mean. And so same, like, I mean, we haven't carried once we swapped, like, the whole setup kind of changed after 2016, like me and the MA guys, we ran together through those years and through a series of, random situations, we weren't working together anymore. Right. Still love those guys. We're great now. It just was not really great at the time. And there was like personal side to that too. Like I was moving back to California. I was trying to like, fix things in my personal life at the time. And that was like a one of, it wasn't all on that, but that was like kind of one of the casualties of the whole situation. I was like, I'm moving back to California. It's not really going to work by coastal. But yeah, there was like changes in, budgets, what I could afford, and like what they wanted, what I could do. And so there's like a lot of things happening all at once. And so that's kind of how that relationship ended at the time. And so, but yeah, I mean, we like work together now again. Anyway, so from there, that's when I started to do the VQ, right? So 2017.
Yeah.
And because it was like I was running out of V8 parts to keep those core engines going, right? Because they had like custom timing chains, custom tensioners, custom cam gears, and everything else.
Nissan they didn't have any.
Well, they gave me everything that they had, right? And so the off-road motorsport program was coming to an end.
Oh.
And so we like absorbed 4 of those engines because we're the only people racing the VK in the country. And so like we basically got like 1 motor a year from them for about 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
And then once, we basically had everything that they had, I was like, I could maybe do 1 more season out of this motor, but I'm already transferring to a new team. Like now's a good time to transfer to a new engine program that's basically inevitable. In my opinion at the time, or with the information that was given to me. Looking back, I probably could have made it work, probably could have found some money, figured out how to duplicate the parts, especially knowing how difficult the next few years were.
Yeah.
So hindsight, it's a bitch. And so, it's like, well, like 2Js are running the mill now, like Daigo's killing it.
You're considering a 2J?
No. I'm saying basically saying like turbo, turbo nitrous engines are like back in, right?
Yeah.
The parts are there, the development's there.
Technology's changing. Yeah.
And so it wasn't just about having a V8, right? Because that was like the V8 era, right?
Yeah.
The 2008 through like 15.
Yeah.
And then, or more so like, anyway. So then the turbo car started taking over. Daigo was killing it. Other people were killing it. That's when James came and killed it for 3 years. And so it's like, the technology's there. The VQ, however, just can't handle that much power.
Yeah.
We went through 10 motors in 2 seasons. So that was not fun.
Yeah.
So we're basically swapping a motor every event.
Yeah.
And so with that, it was like, okay, well, we can apply, because when the engine was together, the car was good, right? But we just couldn't get the reliability. So that's when we went to the VR, right? So we built the VR and we put that in there, and the car was great. We're like got a couple podiums. We're pushing for a championship.
This is pretty recent, right? When you went with the VR,
2019.
Okay. So there's already been a lot of experience with that engine, a lot of knowledge.
Oh yeah. So it was like, we worked out a deal with an engine builder, and he's like, yeah, this thing's good. You can make like 1,500 horsepower with this
Wild.
thing. But now once again, we're at the point where the engine that I broke at Irwindale. Always Irwindale. The engine that we broke at Irwindale, well, actually, that was the first. I'm telling you, Irwindale sucks the power of these cars, because the first VR I blew up was at Irwindale, 2020.
Yeah.
We just came off a double podium, second place, first place in Texas, COVID year, 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to Irwindale, and we just kept that thing wicked up.
Yeah.
Right? Like I was saying, we run the extra 100 horsepower in it.
Yeah.
And after like 4 laps on the bank, just that full load, full throttle, blew the motor. Bad weekend. 2 years later, last Irwindale, we cracked the block. And this is a 1,800 horsepower engine.
Yeah.
Right, as they say. But what I always say with drifting, any power rating, like you have to add 50%.
Mm-hmm.
If they're like, oh, like, your car only makes 400 horsepower, here's a 400 horsepower clutch. Like, no, give me the 600 horsepower clutch, right? Or the drivetrain, or the axle, or like the engine build, right? Because it's just that much more abuse.
Yeah.
Like a regular drift lap lasts about 30 seconds, right?
Yeah.
How long does a drag run last?
Yeah.
Anywhere
8
from
seconds.
Anywhere from 8 to 10.
8 seconds, hopefully.
And then we're doing up to 30 laps in a weekend.
Yeah.
So you're doing almost 100 drag pulls in an FD weekend.
Yeah.
That's like seasons for some of these guys.
Yeah.
And so that's why there's so much abuse that goes on these parts, and why it's so expensive, and you gotta make all the horsepower, and you gotta have spares. And that's why I'm saying, like, the one thing that could help the sport is to kind of wick it back a little bit. And that's basically just in the car build. And it's not even in the car build. I think we should still be allowed to do whatever we want, but I think that they don't need to allow us to run such a big tire. Like, I'd be stoked to run 245s front and back because you can still have a really fast, really good car on that.
That would be really interesting.
And then all you would need is like 800, right?
Yeah.
It's basically like a pro spec car.
Yeah.
So like have us in pro spec cars. The only difference up until this year was the tire size. And like if we were on like, you know, just a 45 square setup, I mean, like, look at their cars. Like they're great. They're fast.
Yeah.
And like I've driven them. I've helped them set up and things like that. You know, with Alex Jager, he's driving a car with us in pro spec. And so, yeah, like that would be the biggest thing because, like his car is built, you know, from MA as well. It's like, I don't want to say carbon copy, but it's really, really close to our car. You know, we literally have like our same turbo setup on there, my old intercooler on there. Like it's a lot of hand-me-down parts and a lot of hand-me-down setup. Same trans, same diff, same gearing, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Same subframes.
Yeah.
He runs a stock VR
nice.
in his car.
Nice.
Makes 620 wheel.
Yeah.
Right. And we run a fully built, you know, capable of 1600 horsepower, running about 950, and we're cracking blocks.
Yeah.
And the only difference between the two cars is the tire.
Tires.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you have a driver's union that you guys all are a part of?
It's like come and gone like 15 times over the years.
Really?
Like there's never enough organization to it. Like everyone's like, we need to like kind of figure this
We
out.
gotta-
And
we
then like it
gotta
lasts,
band
yeah,
together.
yeah. And it like lasts for like 2 events
Yeah.
every time.
People are too busy, or is it hard to get people all together?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both.
Yeah.
Like nobody really wants to take the lead. I tried it one time.
Yeah.
Chelsea tried it like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's not like we're revolting, but it's like we're trying to just have a common voice, right?
Yes.
Instead of
Yeah.
like 32 people complaining.
Yeah.
At different times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that would be the best thing for the sport because it's the driving is going to be just as good, right? We're just gonna go 8% slower.
Yeah.
Like you're not gonna notice.
No one's going to know.
You know, but it's just gonna give more reliability, more consistency, and a better show.
Yeah.
So
Have you noticed that car building aspect problem is preventing new drivers from coming up?
I think it's a lot of reason why drivers stay in pro spec. You know, because there's a couple guys that have earned their Pro 1 license multiple times,
and they don't,
and they just stay in it. It's also half the events. So
yeah,
that's another big thing.
Yeah,
but they're more competitive there, right? Because once again, it's like, you know, our drivers, you know, we've been having the same talk with them. It's like, hey, like, you know, it's going to be like, we understand how expensive it is now. Like, okay, so double that immediately because of the amount of events. But now, you know, the expense of the engine, right? You know, the engine that we were running that we cracked was like, it was like $42,000.
Oh my God.
Because like up until that year, it was always like, you know, we like run the sponsored parts, you know, and like have somebody help do the machining. And it's like a $8,000 to $10,000 engine build.
Yeah.
And that's like what we kind of did up until 21, where like after we had that failure at Irwindale, it's like, you know what, like, you know, some of the guys on the team, business partners, things like that. It's like, we just need to like, you know, we can't have an engine failure like that. Cause we were running for the championship.
Yeah.
And we lost the motor and that was it. And so we're like, we can't have this. We just got to like, you know, stop this whole, like, you know, get whatever parts we can get for free and, you know, try and, you know, get someone to build the engine for us and just like buy the best.
Yeah.
Right. So we're like, okay. So we bought a stage 4 T1 race engine and, it was like, well, you know, we get all the parts brand new for the engine. So brand new block, brand new heads, brand new, you know, covers all through Nissan. So that was like 15 grand worth of parts in itself to have the foundation to build the engine. And then it was like, you know, purchasing like their recommended pistons and rods and like all that stuff. And so that engine was, by the time it was all said and done, it was like over 40 grand.
Yeah.
And guess what? Still
Cracked.
threw a rod outside of it.
Done.
Yeah.
Done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's like, like you can't win, you know, it's like, and you know, same thing with, like I said, with the Papadakis team. Like, I think they did 2 engine swaps on Osbo last year, but, I mean, either way, regardless, it's not that they're doing anything wrong. It's just, we're just pushing them that hard.
Yeah.
And, the only people that are able to, like achieve that are like the top teams.
Right.
And so, yes, some of the lower teams, they might not be blowing motors. So it's not that they're doing things better. In my opinion, I think it's just they understand the limit and they just have to run it like 90% and just have to rely a little bit more on the luck of the run and their driving ability and not have that slight advantage that everybody wants to have.
Right.
Run a little less nitrous, have
Right.
it kick on a couple RPM later.
Right.
It's like that type of stuff.
Right.
We're like, hit the nitrous at like 3,200 RPM,
Right.
and that'll rattle a crank loose.
Right.
You think?
Yeah.
Right.
So there's like a lot of that. And, so now it's once again just turning into a bit of a money game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, but it's like, I'm always doing my best to like, pass down knowledge. That's like literally the whole program with Alex is like, I'm not going to be doing this forever. And so like, when we go to grassroots events, I'm always very willing and able to, give information, even giving parts, like people are always coming by the trailer. Oh, you got this, you got that. It's like, hey, here you go. And like, what do you want for that? I'm like, it's an old AM fitting. Take it.
Nice.
We carry it for this reason, like there's going to be more going to come off another project car and land in the trailer next week.
Yeah.
And so like we've done that, just forever. It's always been the mentality, like the same mentality we've had back in Drift Day. Like you go and you're talking with the other guys there and, they need
Help
something,
everyone,
you need something because, one day like you're going to need help.
Right.
And so why would you ever turn someone away that comes to you?
Right.
Like I feel like our welder, I can usually find it in the pit better than I can find it in my trailer.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of like, where'd the welder go? They're like, oh, like this team has it, that team has it. It's like, we're always like throwing things around, like we all run almost the same axles now, so like we've loaned out axles to other people that we're even like going up against. We're like, oh, you got
That's
19 and a half axle? Like, okay.
It's good to hear that after all these years, it's still the culture.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, totally. And like so like that mentality that's where we all started and that's where it still is.
That's
and
great.
even at the professional level.
That's
but
great.
Like more so at like even like the grid life events. And, we'll like give people like our scrub tires, we'll pull off a set. They might have a couple of laps left on them, but like, we have to be ready to do the whole session, maybe we didn't run them as hard. So it's like, you want them to
Trash and treasures.
Yeah.
That's
And so,
right.
exactly.
That's right.
So it's like nice to always, I'm not going to say like we're like a huge charity case, right? But like we're always down to help others.
Not waste.
Not just in the parts or the tools, but also the knowledge, because we're not going to be here forever. It's literally what we're doing right here.
Yeah.
And
Put it in
speaking of
recording.
Right.
And bring up the memories.
It's speaking of, not being here forever. So, I mean, you've been in FD since its inception.
Mm-hmm.
So what's next for you? Like, where you see yourself? Where are you going?
So that's like one of the big things that we've been trying to do with the team, like having it be more Forsberg racing and not just, Chris Forsberg, the driver.
Yep.
And so we've been, we brought Alex on the team. So he's kind of like the protege and, hoping to see him, progress and move up. And we have also been focusing on doing more projects with Nissan. So like we're doing some work with the Frontier. We've been doing some like commercial work with them, not like the like TV commercial work, but like install videos like for their aftermarket parts, things like that. Doing like special project builds. Like I love doing the special projects like the Ultimaniac, things like that. We come up with dumb ideas and see who wants to kind of come on board and help it come to life. So like I love doing the builds. We're working on another show that's we're hoping to get pen to paper here any day now, and that's gonna be a really cool like giving back type show.
Nice.
That we're working on. So it's we'll hopefully have more details on that soon. We're like hopefully like I said signing contract this week and we can start announcing it.
Yeah.
Give us more tidbits.
Yeah. You'll see. Follow me for more. So I'm really stoked about that show concept. It's something that I came up with back in 2020 and we just couldn't get it off the ground. People were just too tight with their budgets and then we got right back into racing. So that, the builds, doing the Pro 2, Pro Spec now. And then we also brought in Brian Highcotter, who I met in COVID year as well, because, he comes from sim racing, right? And then he was the first driver to win the Nissan GT Academy, right? And so he won the GT Academy. He got a chance, to go race a real car.
Yeah.
They put him in the 370Z, and then he graduated up to running the GT3 GTR.
Yeah.
And he was like winning events.
Yeah.
Like,
Sick.
like not just like, oh, he can get himself around track, like go little sim kid. Like, no, he was like crushing.
Yeah.
Like I think it was like 7 or 8 wins and like 16 podiums or something like that. Like absolute maniac.
Yeah.
And so he was, they shut that program down in like 2016. He hasn't really been doing much racing since. And so he was back on the sim and sim stuff was getting more popular. And so we started to do that in 2020 and then we got linked up because he was like the Nissan guy.
Yeah.
Just like from his heritage, he would race in the GTR in the sim races.
Okay.
And so we started kind of like chatting and working together. And so that next year we built a road race car that we ran in the Grid Life GLTC series. And so we had him driving it, and then he like won a couple races. He won a whole weekend the one time. And so it was cool to get him back into a car and have him, representing us on track, but he was just thrilled to be racing again.
Yeah.
And so we're able to take that effort and that energy and momentum, and we're actually able to go out and do even a test with a GT4 car, which we did a little video on, and I got to drive it. It was fun, and we got Brian to get a seat in it too, and his lap times were just insane.
Yeah.
So the consistency, he from never driving the car, doing like an out lap, feel the car out, pull back in, you good, great, okay, warm up lap, and then like 6 flying laps.
Yeah.
And his 6 flying laps were all within a half second,
Wow.
and like just like the fastest of the day.
Yeah.
And it was just nuts to see him just like, adapt and conform to a car, and not just like, oh, he had the best lap. Like, no, all his laps were the best laps.
Right.
It was
Right.
nuts.
Right.
So yeah, doing more work with him, and just like I said, so we're just trying to have like a more blanketed like racing program,
Right.
instead of just like me and FD.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Well, as you're taking on all these, you're a team owner, right?
Yeah.
And you are involved in multiple motorsports now.
Mhm.
How are you finding time to do all that?
You can't. Something's got to give.
All right,
And so yeah, it's
is it
tough.
is it gonna be your Formula D career that's giving? What is it?
Well, I mean, because I'm not no, like I've always told myself I'm gonna keep going to FD if I can keep getting on the box.
Yeah.
Right. And so like we're still gonna keep doing that. We have some new members of the team, and we're trying to alleviate my energy on the car and like the team itself.
Got
and
it.
Just focus on the drive,
Mm.
because that's been the hardest part.
Yeah.
Like, so I would say that, my like results in FD have kind of wavered here and there because of the pressures of everything else going
Got
on
it.
for the past couple of years. And so we're finally at a point where we have someone that's going to be a little more full time and allow me to not be the one that's like also doing engine swaps, also, packing the trailers and things
Yeah.
like that, which, like literally to this day still doing. And so trying to find more time so I can focus on being more of like the managerial role instead of like the hands-on labor.
Right.
So, because I drove my truck and trailer to like almost every FD event until from like 2007 till 2016. Like, and it was like 10 years.
Yeah.
It was always on the road, and I'm just like, this kind of sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah. I sounds like you're trying to filter and do only what you love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
and, and with more support, you're able to pick and choose what you want to do. And it's not just what you want to do, but it's like what is going to benefit the team the best.
Yep.
Right.
Like
Your
all of
hours
our,
are better spent.
yeah.
other
And so
places.
like our partnerships are amazing. And, that just goes back to always showing up, always doing your best. It's not about, always finishing the best, but like just always putting your best effort forward.
Yeah.
And so, I've been working with Nissan since 2003. When I got that Z, like, and the motorsports guys, when they're down here in Torrance, Steve
Yeah.
Mitchell and those guys,
Oh yes. Steve Mitchell.
yeah, and Paul, they used to like, be like, oh, you want a pair of headlights, off
Yeah.
of this crash car, like,
Yeah.
so it was like, hand-me-down handshake support, but it was still something, right?
Yeah.
Like I needed a headlight. That thing was $800,
Right.
Yeah.
and they gave me one.
Right.
So I ran a couple events with no headlight. So, but so like that support, has been there since day one, since I got to California. My first year with NOS was 2006. So I've been working with them every year ever since.
Yeah.
And so it's, once again, like it's the longevity comes from, being true to yourself and being honest and, working hard. It's not just, oh, you got a championship, we'll give you another year.
Right.
Because we have ups and downs,
Right.
but you just always got to put your best effort forward.
As a 19-year-old vet in pro drifting, is it changing for you as you're getting older to stay competitive, or is it just the rules changing, the environment's changing, technology, like?
It's certainly more difficult now. There's just so many more good drivers.
Yeah.
Right. For the longest time, there was basically just like the top 10. Right? And then like it was like a bit of a gap.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's like, I'd say like all 32 could win any battle.
Yeah.
You got to be on your A game. Like I'll be running with, anyone in FD right now, and I'll be a little nervous, you know,
Yeah.
because like they're running pretty good today. It's not just like I don't think I've pulled up to the line in the past 2 years and been like, oh, this will be cake,
Right.
you know, because
Right.
it's like maybe they're a little inconsistent, but it's because they're fast.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
so like they might be a little wavery, but they're going to pull a gap on you because
Yeah.
some guys just go for the speed and wick it up.
Yeah.
Some guys are, they're a little easier to chase, but they have big angle, big smoke,
Mhm.
you know, and
Yep,
so you can
yep.
lose to that,
Yep.
getting lost. That's like the biggest killer right now is losing because of smoke.
Okay.
And I hate it. You know?
So
There
silly.
And it's funny because like last year, Atlanta, like it's me and Osbo in the finals.
Yeah.
We rip up through the track and it's a killer run, and they one more time us, and I was pissed, right? 'Cause
Yeah.
I thought I had it. So we had a pretty good run on him. He like dropped a tire or two, like to get proximity, and so I thought that was gonna be enough, but they one more timed us.
Yeah.
And so I was like, all right, here we go. So we come back through it, and it's like the last turn of the second run, we're coming down the hill and we transfer, and like we come down, we're pitched up to the left before the final turn, and it's just full whiteout.
Can't see anything.
Can't see a freaking thing.
Yeah.
And every single time, if you watch drifting and you see someone, transfer and like cut through the corner too early, it's because they can't see.
Yeah.
And you lose your frame of reference.
Right.
And your instinct is always to better turn now or
Yeah.
I'm gonna crash.
Yeah.
Right. And so like so many times, like you'll see someone like punch through the smoke and they're like over here on the inside.
Right.
And they're just like, oh, what happened? I'm like,
Right.
what do you think happened?
Yeah.
You think I
Yeah.
meant to do that?
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, like I transferred, and like as soon as I like punched through the smoke, I'm like, I see him like over here, and I'm like 3 wheels through the dirt.
Yeah. Yeah.
Someone
Yeah.
needs to make like, how they have night vision?
Mhm.
They need to smoke vision.
Oh yeah.
Like that would be.
Oh, that's a real thing.
Does night vision work in smoke?
No, you would need infrared. We've looked into it.
Or you bring down the horsepower levels and the tire sizes.
Yeah. And make it back to more competitive driving, which is why I love rain events, because it's the great equalizer.
Oh,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And so like we've podiumed like the last like 3 out of 4 rain events.
Yeah.
Love it.
Because it slows the car down, it's back to the driver.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And there's no smoke, so you're not just losing due to technicalities.
Right.
Yep.
So
Wait, so you would say that age hasn't affected your driving?
So someone once said, I can't take this claim, but somebody once, I want to say it was Matt Field. We were talking about like getting old and being a drifter. And we're like, it's so different than normal racing, right? Because in normal racing, it's all about the reaction,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
But in drifting, it's like wisdom, right?
Mhm.
So the more you drive, the more experience you have, and
Yeah.
seeing how the car in front of you is reacting and knowing how to
Yep.
adjust yourself for
Yeah.
it. So it's not as much of being like super sharp as it is knowing what to do, when to do it.
Got it.
And so, yeah, like, look at the J guys.
Yeah.
They're freaking like
Yeah,
55
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Still
crushing
doing
it.
it. Yeah. Yeah.
Crushing.
Yeah.
Like,
For sure.
I was doing events in China in the end of 2019, and Suinaga's out there, and he's a freaking beast.
Yeah.
He's so fast and
Yeah.
so good, and he's like 54.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my god.
I'm like, this is not an age thing.
Got it.
Like,
Yeah.
as long as you got a good car, like, you just know what to do.
Yeah.
It's comforting.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why, Benson and I don't drive FD was, we were like, it's so difficult to make a living
Mm-hmm.
because we're always struggling and how are we going to get to the next event? We need a bigger budget.
Mm-hmm.
So the money was an issue. So
Always is.
I guess for us old people that left, right,
Mhm.
because we wanted to make a career out of it, are you making a career out of it? Do you get a paycheck every month? Are you taken care of, or do you still feel the driver struggle?
It's like, yes, I'm able to, pay my expenses, live comfortably, right? We're not getting rich, but we're able to, like, this is the full-time thing.
Mm-hmm.
But in anything that you give a shit about, you're
Yep.
going to give 110% effort,
Mhm.
Yep.
especially in a competition setting. Like, you're going to work on the weekends, you're going to put in the extra hours, you're going to pull an
Yep.
all-nighter if you need to get that motor done. So I'm not going to say it's, as bad as eating $1 McDonald's burgers and sleeping in the back of a shop like I did for a couple years.
Yeah.
But it is, the effort's always there, right? It's just a different level of effort, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, like I do have, like a nice apartment I can go home to. But yeah, when you're in the shop and like the things gotta get done, like when we were building the Z, like we built that Z in 5.5 weeks. and that was a lot of effort.
Yeah.
And we made it happen. And like, St. Louis, when we blew our motor, we're up till 5 a.m, swapping the motor, had to be back at track by 7 a.m. to qualify, so it's like, the effort's always there.
Yeah.
But in the in-between now, it's like, there's a little bit of comfort.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's nice.
So
That's
you mentioned that you got to drive with Tuenaga recently. When we first started, it was, us in the US trying to, like, we were looking up at the Japanese guys.
Oh, yeah.
They were like way up here, right? We were always trying to catch up. We were waiting for the day that maybe one day we can pass them, right? How do you compare the two today? What do you think, like, skill level wise?
I still think that there's a handful of those Japanese guys that have the edge.
Well, they've kind of shown it when they've come over and kind of dominated Formula D a little bit, huh?
When Daigo came over, and like he still has a killer edge on everybody, I think, or at least the majority, right? Like Kawabata, like he was running in the China events too, and just like watching him drive his car, I'm just like, this guy's like on another level, right? And I'm talking just a couple years ago, and like it's good to. In my opinion, it's good to see that and think that. Like someone might sit here and tell you, be like, you're running as good or you out-qualified him. I'm like, but like to watch it from the outside, to be like, wow, like that guy's like really freaking good. I think is a good mentality to have.
Yes.
Know? Like, some people are like, no, you show up and you're the
you gotta
big
believe
badass there and you're number one and like
Yeah.
everyone else can suck. And it's like, that's one way to approach it, but I guess that's
Yeah.
never really been mine. It's like, be aware of, what you're running against. Especially like Irwindale, like when you're sitting in the line and you're just watching the cars run to the left.
Yeah.
Every single car that comes across that start finish line, I'm like, oh, he's going in the wall. Oh, he made it.
Yeah.
Oh, he's going in the wall. Oh, he made it. Every time.
Yeah.
And like I'll sit there and like we'll be just chatting on the radio, I'm just like, God, that guy's like, carrying so much speed into the bottom turn. Like I thought he was gonna wreck. They're like, dude, you're going 3 miles an hour faster than him.
Yeah.
I'm just like, oh, wait, what?
Yeah.
Because it's all perspective, right? You need to, in my opinion, you need to control your emotions and not think that you're just like the best.
Yeah.
Right? You need to, understand that you are in a competition and these guys are there to win too.
Yeah.
And you got to, watch, their moves and understand that even if you are driving better than them, that, they are going to beat you if you let your guard down.
Right.
Do you have an idol?
Not really. Like I wouldn't say I idolize any single person, but like there's like over the years, there have been certain people that I look up to as like at that point in time, right? And so at one point in time, it was like, the Signal guys, right? Just like, oh my God, these guys are like, crazy. Their cars are so good. And then that didn't change like when we met. It's not like, oh, like, you meet your idol and it goes away. Like, no, it's just like then it changed to, a couple years later, it was like Tanner, right? I would say just like this guy's just an absolute machine on the track, right? Just like he was like the new like consistency, right? And he had like his cars a little bit better. He was working with Steph, right? Steph hung up the driving and started to be full time, and that program started to elevate. And so like looked up to Tanner for a while, and then like it's always kind of changing. Like definitely was super impressed with Daigo's the build and the style that he brought. So just like the whole different approach of like, oh, we got 800 horsepower and 800 foot-pounds in my V8 and we're ready to go. And he's like, I got 1200 wheel horsepower with a nitrous turbo 2J. We're just like, what? And just like the blistering smoke and like the ability to surge that he had over everybody. I was like, wow, like that's nuts. Like it's just different. It's like I said, it was like when you first got in that 180SX, I was like, this is how a car is supposed to feel. I was like, same thing. Like, this is what a car can do. Because it's just coming from a different thought process,
right?
And then like same thing like when James and Peter came across, right? Like they were just all about super smooth and like not like big angle, like just like going backwards all the time, but it's like just running deep angle and still being fast,
right?
And like just their ability to have a car that was set up to like not only be fast but have the angle and to be that consistent,
right?
And that's what won. So it was like they had the style covered, and then they had the speed covered, and they had the consistency.
Right.
So, and like that, like still haven't quite figured out what was up with that?
Yeah.
In all honesty, like, you know, I'd like to think that we're like close to that, like with my setup. You know, like we're not the fastest car on track, we're not the biggest angle car on track, and you know, but like the consistency to the line, the speed needs to be there, and you got to be steady with your angle, right? In my opinion, that's the way I've always been. But they just had that like a little bit more of the like the angle with the speed, you know, like that's the part, like, and that's just down to setup, you know, like for me to be fast and keep up with him, like we're always like running a little less.
Okay. So what are you working on these days in terms of what your craft with driving?
As far as what, like
just,
practicing and testing?
Yeah, what are you trying to be better at as a driver? After 20 years, I can't imagine what it could be.
It's just the consistency.
It's consistency.
Is
it just repetition?
Yeah, because you know, I still get nervous like on the line, like even for qualifying. And you know, when you're lining up against someone, like I feel that you know, I think I did lose a little bit of confidence after the V8 time frame, and so you know, we got like super kicked in the dirt with the trying to make the VQ work, and then we've been kind of getting it back going with the VR. And so there is that window of, you know, be lining up against someone, and you know, like I've lined up against Osbo a ton of times, and sometimes I'm just like, God, this guy's like gonna smoke us, right?
Yeah.
And you know, like I know he's running good, and I know like we're maybe having an issue, or I just wasn't comfortable that day. And there's other times I'll line up with him, very same guy, you know, and I'm just like, we got this, right? And so trying to find out why I'll feel different about the same person, you know, the same competitor, in different settings. And so that's like my biggest thing. Like, why am I nervous on this qualifying run, but I wasn't last time? Why am I nervous to run Osbo this time, but I wasn't last time? And so it's like, trying to figure that out. And I think that comes down to, it really comes down to car setup. Getting comfortable in the car fast, like your confidence just goes up. You're just like, yep, we're ready for the weekend. But if you're like chasing a gear, you know, like you're running too much throttle in one corner, as in like you're having to give it too much, so you don't have enough pedal to make your adjustments. Then like, like you just know that you're like, we're not 100%.
Right.
And so once you don't feel that you're 100%, you know, then like you're already giving yourself up to the competitor.
So I've heard from several people that they several pro drivers that they employ a professional to help them with the way they think, their thought process, and how they deal with things. Do you have someone like that?
I don't. I mean, like, yes and no. Like, not a professional that I employ, but obviously, like, I have my own methods that I've used in the past. I've, you know, people that are on the team, you know, like certain people know the right thing to say at the right time, you know, to help with that. You know, just like based on our, you know, history and seeing like how I will respond. So nothing like actual professional, but it's funny because like, I know like people in the field that do that, and I have seen it be successful for some and
not
others,
for others.
So it's like, it's still comes down to a person. Some people can like, you know, receive and, you know, apply that information, and some people, they just can't get out of their own ways.
Right.
I feel like for me, it was really mental. Like, you know, you got to be in the right head game, you know, and a
it's
littlest thing can throw you off. And it's not even the car setup. Your car could be solid, but if you're just having a bad day or someone said something wrong, then
it's as simple as that for some people.
There's just some days where like nothing can get in your way, and just everything's working, and then there's no explanation for it.
You're just on.
You're just on.
You know, and that's the thing. Like, so that's what I'm saying when, you know, you're lining up against someone, and of those 32 guys, you know, yes, there are a select few that are on majority of the time, but then like, you will potentially line up with someone who's like, like they're killing it today. You know, like they're in that zone. And it's like, So you can't let anyone. So you can't just like always have the, you know, the thought that this is going to be easy.
Right.
Especially in the past like 4 or 5 years.
You got 5.
So we're approaching the end of our time. I wanted to ask a couple.
It goes by fast.
It goes by really fast.
And I feel like I got so much more to talk about.
I know.
We didn't touch about grid life. We didn't touch about. You know.
We didn't even talk about how you guys met.
I know. There's so many other like little things that.
I know. Should we bring it back to how
we
you
met?
guys met?
Well,
I can ask that.
I met you in person at that D1 driver search at Irwindale, the one where you came with your FCs. I don't know. Do you remember anything about that day?
I remember a few things. That was a while ago, yeah. But I remember, they were like showing us the course. The course was like, for some reason, it was like hard for me to get. Right?
Yeah. Well, it was on a bank.
Yeah.
No one's driven on a
never
bank.
driven the bank before. So I remember like understeering a little bit, like in that first turn, because you kind of like came up and I was like, go down under this cone and then back up. And I remember kind of getting a weird push and then like it rotated out. That's probably why I didn't
physics
move on.
is all out the door.
I did what I normally would do. And I'm like, why didn't the car rotate?
Yeah.
You know, it's like it didn't process. But yeah, that was, I was like super frustrated that day because, you know, I was like, felt like I was pretty good, you know, in my small pond. And then I came over and I was like, didn't even make it past first round. That was literally the spark that fueled the whole thing.
Got it.
Just
you know
like,
what made me
need a better car, need to come back, need to, you know.
You know what made me feel bad that day was Sam Hubinet driving a rental car and making it.
Yep. Yeah, I know. They literally rented that Z. And that might have also helped my decision too.
With the Z?
Because they were in a Z.
Yeah.
And I was like, it must be pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I remember meeting you and you were very quiet.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like you were quiet for a while, for several years. Maybe, I think that was just around when you were not in your comfort zone. But
I'm still that way.
You're still that way. So
if I'm around some new people, I'm usually just like, what's up?
Yeah.
People watcher.
Yeah. No, I remember going on the Yokohama would fly us to a bunch of car shows, and you're the normal Chris. You know, like we had some rapport. We would talk. But you're not that talkative. And then, you know, the event was over and you were like, you're going to hit the bar. And then it was a different Chris. And you're getting into bar fights and stuff. I was like, oh, that's the same Chris.
No. I didn't get in bar fights. Tony Angelo get in bar fights.
Okay.
And then I was then in a bar fight.
Yeah. Okay. Got it.
I never started any fights.
You're in a bar fight by association.
Yeah.
By drift association.
Yeah.
By
no. But
Drift Alliance.
But back to Irwindale, I remember, you know, it's the first time I got to meet you, and I remember like I invited you and Ben Schwartz, and we all had In-N-Out after.
Yeah.
And
that was cool. Yeah, we're just sitting on. There's a photo somewhere. I remember seeing a photo somewhere. Like we're like sitting on the back of my trailer, right? Yeah.
Sitting on the floor wherever. Yeah, because we couldn't pull your trailer into In-N-Out, so we parked next. You know.
That's right. We gotta find that picture.
Yeah.
And I saw a photo surface recently of you, me, and Cassidy. Out at one of those hardcore nights.
Yeah, we used to
I was just like, what? And I like remember I showed my girlfriend. I was like, that's Cassidy.
Yeah.
She's never met you, but like we see Cassidy at FD.
Yeah.
I know. I think like nobody knows like Cassidy's past. It's like they just see her as like, oh, she works at FD. It's like, no, dude. Like back in the day.
Yeah, I was like explaining the whole thing to her because she's like, who is it again? I'm like, oh, it's like Benson Sue. He was like one of the OG drift guys. I was like, and his wife Nadine, she used to run this drifting club called Drifting Pretty. And I was like, and Cassidy was in there.
Yeah.
What?
Wild.
She had a red S13.
Yeah.
Oh my god. So
good
fun.
times.
It's good times. But yeah.
So I think I can't think of any other modern day Z icons, but you.
Yeah.
You've had it for so long, and it's always been with you for drifting. And personally, I think your Z's the 2004 Z, the silver one, that set the bar for me in terms of like Z style. And I feel like no one's ever come close.
Cool, thanks. Had some help. The Signal guys kind of helped with a little bit of that, but because I did the C West was with Motorex, and I was on the Ings kit when I was with Signal. I did the Vertex kit when I first built it. Yeah, both looked good.
That's
pretty cool.
Both looked really good. But I feel like Zs are very affordable now.
Oh, yeah.
And it's becoming a big part of grassroots drifting.
Huge, yeah. I tell everyone, they're like, how do I get in drifting? I go buy a Z.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like...
So we bought a Z also. We have an 08.
Cool.
We haven't drifted it yet.
One.
Yeah, we love it so far. We're trying to drift it. We haven't made time yet. But if you had to give advice to someone who's considering a new car, maybe the Z, what would you give them?
I tell everyone, first 3 mods for any car, diff seat coilovers every time. So
that's what we've been saying.
Yeah. So the diff, right, locks up the rear tires. Absolute must for drifting, whether you weld it or you put a good diff in there.
Yeah.
Good diff will last you forever if you take care of it. So it's an investment. Weld it if you're on a budget. Seat, because no matter how good or bad the car is, more so on a bad car, right? Because you're getting thrown around more, big sloppy car. So a seat is actually one of the most beneficial bang for your bucks. You can put in a fully stocked car and have better control of it.
Yeah.
And then coilovers is just the next best bang for the buck to lower center of gravity, stiffen it up, get it more balanced, a little more control through the car.
Nice.
Yeah.
Love it.
What do you think of drifting today? It's changed a lot.
It has.
There was a period of time where if you wanted to get into drifting, it was kind of your path was to try for pro drifting.
That was it.
But things have changed a lot. What do you think of drifting today?
That was like another thing I wanted to like touch on more than like current FD stuff.
Yeah.
But it's all good. Current drifting now, it's so much easier to get into. There are events everywhere. Like when we started, we were literally starting our own events. Like we had no place to go. And so now there are just events happening pretty much every weekend somewhere in the country, right? And like every month, like in your region. And so there's always a place to go to. Tracks are more privy to allowing it. There's also, with every event, there are other drivers that are willing and able to give you, tips and instruction, tell you how to set up your car. The things that took us years to figure out, you can teach in hours, right?
Yeah.
It took me forever to learn how to drift a couple corners. I can teach someone, perfect example, Letitia Buffoni. We built a car for her, so it's like, okay, here's a Z, with like some good supporting mods, still NA. Caged it, bucket seats, diff, good suspension, little angle kit. And she had never, she drifted like once before, but took her to the track. We went from, donuts to figure eights to big donuts, big figure eights to, I had her linking Grange, Apple Valley. I had her linking Apple Valley by day 2.
Yeah.
Nice.
Wow.
So like,
Love it.
So once again, it's like, it's the passing of the knowledge, the car setup. So just like how I got my hands on that 180, I'm like, wait, this is a good drift car,
Yeah.
Like she just jumps in. It's like, this thing is like ready to shred this track.
Nice.
And so her being able to like accelerate her learning curve by not having to figure out how to build a car and continue to go back and trial and error and just like, okay, this one's good. Like, let me feel it out.
Yeah.
And just killed it. And so like that exists everywhere. Like, I'm not saying like just like for me, like, oh, I can build your car and teach you to drift. Like that exists all over the country. Like, getting the information from the internet or from a friend or from someone that you meet at the track. They'll say, oh, like, go buy diff seat coilovers and go set your alignment to this and, get this size tire and put them at this pressure and you'll be good.
Yeah.
And then you will have that same car. And then you can come to that track and they will tell you how to do it. Like, oh, turn in here, clutch kick here, and they'll give you reference points. And you can learn how to drift very quickly, at least enough to get around a track.
Yeah.
And so I think that's like one of the best parts about drifting is how accessible it is now. Versus like we were just, like I said, it took us years to figure that type of stuff out.
It was like beginners teaching beginners.
Well, yeah, exactly. We had no idea what we were doing.
Right.
Yeah.
And there were a lot less events. There was like one a month.
Yeah,
Now
one a
you can
month.
go any day of the week if you want.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Love that.
So that's like the difference, the accessibility to not only the cars, and the knowledge, because like same thing, like you can buy a pretty good drift foundation for pretty cheap now. Back then it was like a 240 or a Corolla or whatever. And, like it's hard to learn in a 4-cylinder.
Yeah.
Like
It
an NA
is.
6-cylinder
It is.
it really is that much better.
Yeah.
It is.
So then like you got guys that are spending all their time doing engine swaps and trying to get like that little bit of edge of power. But that is the part that would take people out is the build.
Yeah.
Right. So, you strip their car down and they're like going to build the car and then it sits for a year,
Yeah.
and so that's like kind of part of the issue is, people kind of getting in over their head. And so, the accessibility to good foundations like Z's and or, like E36s or whatever. And then just doing those couple supporting mods, getting some support at the track and you're off and running.
Nice.
Love that.
So looking back on your career so far, it's been a really long career. What do you think your legacy is on the sport?
Well, it's hard to say, but like, I'd love to think that, I'm kind of like a pioneer of the sport, right? A lot of like firsts. And
you definitely are. And that's why you're on this podcast. I want everyone to, I mean, everyone sees, modern day Chris Forsberg. I wanted them to understand, that you started a long time ago and you were one of the pioneers. You're not just, a successful pro driver.
Yeah. And that's like kind of what we're talking about right before we fired it up is like a majority of fans do not know anything pre social media, pre 2012. That's like kind of when everything grew and changed. And in that window, even like XDC, like we like started and helped to run basically Pro 2 before Pro 2 existed, because like, I, as well as many other people, knew that there's this gap. Like you said, it was either your grassroots or your pro. And it's like, there's enough, good drivers that just aren't able to run FD because of, the commitment and the time and the money. But there needs to be another series. And so like one of the big stipulations I put in the rule book was like, if you are top 16 FD, you are not allowed to enter. Yeah. So it's like trying to focus on that middle tier, right? The junior varsity, whatever you want to call it. And so giving people a leg up. And like, that's how Chelsea came through. He came and was crushing it through XDC amongst many others. Like Odie came through XDC. I remember Forrest was running in it. Like just a bunch of the names that are in FD now is like, that series kind of helped propel them, get them, events and recognition of, getting on a podium, right? Even though it's not FD, it's still like they're moving their way up. Yeah. And so from, kind of like helping to start events out in New Jersey to get us off the street and onto the track, like that. I feel it was like a really cool like moment in time. And then like helping to get XTC going, just like, bringing drifting to new countries all the time with Drift Alliance. We were going to El Salvador, going to Costa Rica. We're going to, we went to China. Like so many like first drift events, which were mostly demos. So they were fun. We're out there and just burning tires and like giving people rides and just kind of helping to spread the good word. That drifting is sweet. You should do it too.
So Chris, who do you have to thank for your success, or what do you have to thank? What brought you here?
It's tough because there's certainly so many cooks in the kitchen on this one, right? It's clearly not just me. I am the one constant, and there's been a lot of variables over the years, right? But like I was saying, the big thing for me is like, when you get a partnership, you got to give it 100%, right? I think a lot of people even currently take partnerships for granted, right? And they're like, oh, I got a free part, thanks, bye. But it's like, you really need to, like I said, just keep showing up and keep putting in your best effort and being very appreciative for what is provided to you. And, it's because it's a mutual thing, right? It's not just one way. Like, you giving me something doesn't mean I got it for free and I'm out of here. Like I said, there's a give and take always. That's how all relationships work, right? Even down to business, down to personal. And so with that being said, it's like always being aware of who is supporting you, right? And so like with Nissan helping me out on like, a very small scale at first, but understanding that they were going out of their way for that, right? They weren't involved with drifting. They weren't, sponsoring it or focused on it, but they thought what I was doing with the car was cool. And so I always, did my best to represent the brand. And then same with NOS. NOS, came in and, I've always just been, advocating for the brand and help them grow. They had a couple acquisitions, and just throughout the years, just always being very positive and, working with that relationship as best as possible. And, I was with Tanabe and, James and Jiro for 15 years, something like that.
Long time.
NOS for 18 years, Nissan for 20 years. So it's like you have to, you definitely have to put the effort in. You can't just assume that they're going to come back. Right? So always under promise, over deliver. Don't just stick to the line items in the contract. Like, I agreed to take out the trash today.
And that's all. That's all I'm going to do.
That's all I'm going to do. That's what I'm saying. It's like it's on all levels. It's not. It's like that's how a good relationship lasts. Is to always show up and always do your best.
Love it. I think so early on you understood how this all works from a
think
marketing perspective way earlier than a lot of us.
It's like I didn't know. I wasn't coming in with that kind of confidence, but it just like made sense.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like not trying to talk on some like higher level type thing. It was just like I didn't go to business school. Like I didn't go to college. I literally got an academic probation from my community college because I was leaving early to go work on my car.
Yeah.
Like no joke. Like I would skip class to go try and fix my RX-7. And so that was basically at the start of it. I'm like, just the school is just not for me. Right. Like I'm gonna figure this out. And I think it just turned into, like I said, just having just some like subconscious understanding of like I said, you just gotta, I don't want to say fake it till you make it again, but it's like you have to invest in yourself, right? And whether that's the time or literally financially, like, I believed that I could do it. And so I tied myself up with a whole bunch of loans.
You put your money where your mouth is. Yeah.
And like racked up credit cards and racked up, like signing up for a car loan that I knew I was going to destroy.
Yeah.
And it worked out.
Yeah.
And invested in myself in
awesome.
Some capacity. And like, I've heard of other people doing that too, and they're just like, I got so many credit card bills, and it's like, that's how we all kind of did it. It's like, swipe that card, buy more gas, hit the road, another hotel, another this, another that. And it's like, it eventually it paid off.
Yep.
And here we are today talking about the history.
And you're still going strong.
I know. Yeah. And we're still racking up credit cards.
But you're going to get your TV deal. And everything's going to be okay.
It's still the same. You still have to, being a team owner, you still got to manage it all correctly. We get a budget that we have to, work within. And, like I said, we're not just going to like, oh, we got paid, like buying a house, buying this or that. It's like, no, like we have to, invested into the team. We have to make sure we have, like I said, like our spares. We have to, like I said, always over deliver. You got to put it back in to make sure that you are giving your best effort and not just trying to get a paycheck.
Yeah. That's good advice.
Love it.
Yeah.
So I think we've reached the end of the interview.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
I know, and I feel like we go another 2 hours.
We'll do a follow-up.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. But thanks for driving all the way up here.
Of course.
Taking the time on a Sunday away from your family and friends. I know you've got a Super Bowl party to hit, probably. Something.
Just trying to, heading out of town. Like, I was out of town all last week. We're doing a shoot. And then I went out to Hammers to meet up with some of our partners on Friday. And then, today we're doing this. And so tonight, just going to kind of chill a little bit. And then, I'm back out of town on Tuesday. So, in the shop tomorrow. Trying to catch up. Because I haven't been there for a week. So, it's a lot of in and out, a lot of traveling.
Living the life.
I also wanted to add that I know the life of a FD driver is insane. You're not just a driver, the everything for your team. So I appreciate you spending the time. It's been like so many years. It's great seeing you, seeing that like all the accomplishments you've made and just what a successful career you've made out of what we were just doing to have fun back in the day.
Literally how it started.
Yeah.
We're so proud of you, Chris.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
It's really nice.
It's really awesome. It's really awesome to see how far you've come. And when I see you do interviews now versus back in the day, I was like, oh man, he's so good. He's so good at interviews now. But appreciate your time. Appreciate you for all the things you've done for drifting culture in the U.S. So
thank you. Yeah. It's it's just a love for the sport, right?
Yeah.
So
for sure.
Yep.
Long live drifting.
Yep.
That's it.
All right. Thanks.
I don't think it's going anywhere.
Chris.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Silady Mania Podcast Season 2, brought to you by Falken Tires, produced by Benson Sue and Nadine Sue, audio and video engineering by Mark Mondoy, graphic design and motion graphics by Steve Nakamura. Got a question or comment for us? Call or text us on our hotline at 323-607-6075, and maybe you can be featured on a future episode. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to our podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you download your podcasts.